It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Yes, unlike any other show out there, we take it all here. Phone lines, calls, texts. This is where the conversation happens on what's really happening in our nation, the state of Colorado, in the city of Denver. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive in to the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Those text messages come right into the studio. Whole lot to cover. We're going to get into the latest on the LA wildfires. Plus, did the mayor make some promises at one point, particularly the LA mayor when she was running for office, that she wasn't going to travel? And then she's been out traveling. The New York Times covering this aspect of the issue. And then, are the taxpayers of California frustrated that their tax dollars aren't going to what really matters, their safety and security, going out there for all these special projects? Fox covering that over the weekend. And an interesting piece in the in Politico about how far President Trump can go with these Insurrection Act orders if he wanted to use troops in particular cities. And would troops have to obey everything he ordered? We'll get into that in the 8 o'clock hour. Then the latest on the updates on Jack Smith as well. Plus, stabbings on the 16th Street Mall. One woman killed, had her throat slit. Yikes. So lots of news to cover. Want to hear your comments on all of this. Again, the phone line, 303-696-1971. Bill, how was your weekend?
Busy weekend, but that's okay. It was good. Had to put together a bed. We were talking off air, put together a bed for my youngest that came from IKEA. So we did it with a weird shaped wrench and stuff that wasn't English. So it was fun, but it was interesting. My wife and I, as I was telling you, have done these IKEA things enough. So we're pretty good. We understand how the system works, what they try to tell you to do, and also to make sure you read all of the instructions before starting number one, just to make sure you know how things are supposed to totally fit together. So that was a lot of fun.
I'm the key of jumping in without even looking at the instructions.
See, my wife is too. She does that too. She's the person that, there's certain things inside of her car that she had for a couple of years, still doesn't know what certain buttons do. And I'm like, it says it in the manual. She goes, I didn't read that. I'm like, what? I read your manual. I don't even drive the car. So yeah, she's the queen of not doing the instructions either. So that's why we work out well together, because I can go all the way through the instructions. I went through them twice before figuring it out. And then I laid things out on the ground. She's like, wait, couldn't we put that? I'm like, no, this is going this way because eventually it's going to have to be put on facing this direction. She goes, oh, I'm like, see, that's like, step number 32. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I plan for. But it was nice. And daughter was very, very appreciative of the new one, and then got to hang out and watch some soccer and watch some really good football. Did a lot of radio over the weekend. The playoffs for the NFL were fantastic. I don't know. I know you went out and did Cowboy stuff.
Yeah.
What'd you do?
Kick off the weekend of the National Western Stock Show. So
yeah, you brought the kids out. There's a fantastic
whole
video
family there.
That looks really cool.
And
that was fun.
All the kids got cowboy hats, and we went to the rodeo, walked around all the exhibit hall and the education areas. And
yeah, when you go and get a cowboy hat, you have to go get it, and you get it custom. You go there and you make sure they fit it right, and they bend it for you. They make sure that it fits on you properly. Yep, exactly. That's the only way to go and get a cowboy hat. Plus, then it feels like they have customized it just for you. So in my mind, the cowboy hat means more because they have done that personalization to it. So that is really cool. So all your kids get new cowboy hats.
First place that we went for the cowboy hats, they're like, these will run between $500 and $1,000. And I was like, all right.
These are kids, right? Yeah.
Right.
See what kids do with them? Yeah.
We're gonna walk down to the cheaper area. But that they have that entire spectrum. So you can get the $50 hat, which is what my boys get, all the way up to the $1,000, $1,400.
which is
Beaver
wonderful.
pelt hat.
I know, geez, that's fantastic. I saw some other friends out there, talking about their favorite vendors that they saw, and I got to see some of the mutton busting. You saw that as well.
Yeah.
And tell me about the rodeo. What was your favorite part about the rodeo that evening?
Oh, it's always the bull riding.
Yeah.
Always. This was kind of funny. So there's a bull that went out, did one big buck,
Yeah.
turned, and just stopped. And the guy goes,
I like that.
He's got his hand up. He's just sitting there. Like, what is going on? Then we put the kids on the mechanical bulls, and they all got tossed off.
That's fantastic. So, I saw the pictures of the kids on the mechanical bulls. That's fun.
So if you don't understand rodeo, it all, and I did it because I grew up in Cherry Hills. So what do I know about rodeo?
Yeah.
But it's hard to learn. It all reflects things you actually do on the ranch.
Yep, exactly.
So
things you have to do.
Cattle roping because you got to give them shots or take care of them, their health or whatever it is. And then as you get towards the end of the rodeo, like you would late in the evening on a ranch, you get to the more, I've had some whiskey. Let me see if I can sit on this bowl longer than you can.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, hey, Steve, bet you can't hold my beer.
Right.
Yeah.
So bull riding, there's no actual benefit other than you're going to see how long you can actually ride that giant animal.
That gives you bragging rights. So, of course, there's something very important there. Very important. I love seeing the videos that you had and some things that I had not, again, I don't pay attention to professional bull riding as much. I appreciate some of the outfits that the bull riders are wearing because they've really leaned into some personalization. There were color themes. There were some really fancy chaps.
Like, the man with the yellow hat.
Yes, I saw him. Yeah, he was all yellow.
Shorts.
Yes, it was fantastic. That was really cool. I love that because for me, that's that's an expression of their personality, and you can kind of see. And again, it's professional wrestling. It's their ring robes. It's their ring attire. It's how they present themselves. And I love the fact that professional bull riding is leading into that. I think that's fantastic.
And it's getting a lot bigger, more professionalized. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about how it's the sport where millionaires and billionaires are now starting to invest into teams and traveling teams and all that stuff. So,
that's fantastic. I'm glad you had fun. That is wonderful.
It was great. So it's the best 16 days in January. National Western Stock Show continues for, I think 14 more days.
Yeah, 14 at this point. That's great.
So great event, especially for the family and the kids. So go down and have a lot of fun there.
Wonderful family event.
Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Colson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hope you had a great weekend. PBR is awesome. Love watching that stuff. Those guys are incredible. 15.
Would you go sit on a bowl if you could go back to being 20 years old?
Man, there's no way. I've watched those guys, and my dad had relatives in South Dakota that did that stuff, and oh my God, it's just frightening. No, I would never. I mean, it's just incredible what they do when you look at those things. I always thought, you can update me on this. I always thought now that they're wearing the helmets, is there a helmet with that has where it actually looks like a cowboy hat? Have you seen that at all?
Maybe I've seen that in whitewater rafting. Actually,
there's
a whitewater rafting.
Oh, is that right?
That looks like a cowboy hat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that'd be a good idea. That's the only thing I don't like about. I want to see them wear cowboy hats, but I want them to be safe as well because we have a death seems like every 5 or 10 years in PBR. But that is.
I saw a video
amazing.
the other day of a guy. I think he was like 23, 24 years old, and his aorta ripped. So he gets thrown off the bull, stands up, and then collapses and dies.
Oh my God. No, that does not.
It's a dangerous sport.
Shock me. It is. I mean, you just look at the size and the strength of those bulls. It's amazing. All right. Happy Monday. Boy, some tough news to start the week. 15 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 36 today. Our top story: an American Airlines flight attendant has been identified as the victim of a deadly weekend stabbing in Denver. The airline announced Sunday that Phoenix-based flight attendant Celinda Levno was the victim of a senseless crime in downtown Denver on Saturday night. The airline did not say what happened, but decided to move its flight crews to a hotel closer to DIA following Levno's death. A friend of the flight attendant would later tell Denver 7 that she was stabbed to death while walking along the downtown mall, as we all know, on Saturday evening. Police arrested a suspect last night and say the man is connected to weekend stabbings that left 2 dead and 2 injured. His identity will be released hopefully today. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested for a deadly shooting that happened in Aurora last week. A man was shot outside his home on East 62nd Drive on Thursday night. Investigators say the man saw a suspicious car near his home just before the shooting. Police identified the car and conducted a traffic stop on Friday, arresting the teen suspect on an outstanding warrant. He's now facing a charge of first-degree murder in connection with the man's death.
My humble position, and it's not just being naively optimistic, that only reinforces the imperative moving quickly.
That guy has never had a humble position ever. That's Gavin Newsom, just plain evil. Firefighters working around the clock to contain the wildfires burning in the LA area. The forecast calls for more high winds, which could fuel the flames. So far, Palisades Fire is the most destructive in LA history, burning more than 23,000 acres and leaving homes and businesses in ashes. The snake in the slick back hair now all of a sudden talking about the new city he and the globalists want to build. And this is frightening when you think about it. And you really consider what has happened in the past week. They're 15-minute cities. They're getting ready for all this 5G, get it all cleaned out, redo it. It's all by design.
A Marshall Plan. We already have a team of looking and reimagining LA 2.0, and we're making sure everyone's included, not just the folks on the coast, people here that were ravaged by this disaster.
You just said you're organizing a Marshall Plan for the rebuilding of California. What is that Marshall Plan?
For
Tell
this
us about this
region,
Marshall
we're just
Plan.
starting to lay out. I mean, we're still fighting these fires. So we're already talking to city leaders. We're already talking to civic leaders. We're already talking to business leaders and nonprofits. We're talking to labor leaders. We're starting to organize how we can put together a collection of individuals on philanthropy for recovery, how we can organize the region, how we can make sure that we are seeking federal assistance for the Olympics more broadly, but also federal assistance for the recovery efforts, and how we can galvanize the community with folks that love this community to really develop a mindset so that at scale, we're dealing with the scope of this tragedy and responding to it at scale with efficiency, like the executive order I talked about, time value of delivering projects, addressing building codes, addressing permitting issues, and moving forward to rebuilding and being more resilient.
Yeah, I bet. Stay tuned and watch that develop closely. Ukrainian President Zelensky is offering to send firefighting help to LA in a statement posted to X on Sunday. Zelensky, can you believe that? Hey, can you send back the hoses?
Right. I was going to say all the money and resources we sent. Sure glad they're coming back to us.
Yeah, isn't that great? Hey, what do you think about the Newsom there? Sounded pretty optimistic, didn't he?
Oh my gosh. I have a hard time even.
It's hard to wrap your mind around
the incompetence of it.
Yeah.
Right.
When someone says folks like 3 times in 45 seconds, I don't trust him. Folks, and folks, and we have this, and you look at Lahaina, what happened in Hawaii,
right?
And these are the 2 wealthiest communities.
And Lahaina still hasn't been rebuilt yet.
No, but they're on their way. I think there's some development there going on, but I don't. I mean, you go back 5, 8, 10 years with both places and the insurance companies.
Yes,
there's so much crap going on, and you can't trust him further than you can comb his hair. But yeah, it's getting bad. Got to keep a close eye on those jokers. TikTok's future in the U.S. is in the hands of the Supreme Court after justices heard arguments last week over an impending ban of the massive popular video platform under a law signed last spring. ByteDance, TikTok's Chinese parent company, must sell the platform by January 19th or be banned in the United States over national security concerns. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com.
Big play here. Trying to go up top for it.
He wants to run for it, Jim. He wants to just go get it with his legs. He's trying to find
It wasn't there, so now he's got to throw it deep to the end zone. And was that caught? Yes! Ty Johnson scrapes it off the ground, above the ground for the touchdown.
Broncos fall to the Bills Sunday in the wild card round of the playoffs, 31-7. The final, head coach Sean Payton.
The things we felt we needed to do on the road to win, we didn't do nearly well enough. Time of possession was heavily tilted in their favor. We struggled consistently, whether it was third downs or running the football. And then, we never really had an answer to stop their running game.
But they got back into the playoffs. So nice job. Long trip back last night, though. Lafayette has 12 degrees right now. Littleton is 13. It's 15 in Denver. And it is Monday. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Fair weather to start the week here in Denver. Just a little chilly. Temperatures are going to be in the 30s today and tomorrow. Might make the 40s Wednesday. The warmest day of the week will be Thursday. We're going to see generally fair, dry conditions. Nights in the teens and lower 20s. Increasingly cloudy Friday, turning cooler late. Then it's going to be much, much colder by Friday night and the weekend with a chance of light snow. An Arctic front will be paying Colorado and the Front Range a visit by the weekend. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Text messages starting to pour in, as well as phone calls. George in Westminster. Tragic that the leftist news media attacked Larry Elder so viciously when he ran for governor of California in the recall election. They called him the black face of white supremacy. They must spend all their spare time thinking up just the right words for their never-ending attack on conservatives. Bless KNUS, KRKS, Jeff, Bill, Blake. Have a great week. Thanks, George. Yeah. I think it was. I would have much rather have had Larry Elder as governor of California than Gavin Newsom right now. Let's go to Robert, Denver. Good morning, Robert. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm just beside myself listening to this governor of California. I mean, he talks about rebuilding and the Marshall Plan for California and so forth. And these people won't rebuild these homes for 3 or 4 years.
Easily.
The permitting issue has been a disaster for 25 years in that state. And I don't know what this guy is talking about. Like, this has not been a priority for anybody, especially Denver. I mean, it's just ridiculous what we've been enduring over the last 15 years in Denver and probably 25 years in California. And it affects housing so much that these politicians, they just don't get it, you know?
Yeah, and you look that happened in the Marshall Fire rebuilds as well, where these kind of new green requirements on building permits made it a lot harder for folks to get their homes rebuilt quickly and respond to the tragedy that they had. I think I'll go look this up, but that Colorado rolled back some of those to help folks because it became such a problem.
Oh, I don't know about up there in Superior, but I'm a 28-year builder in Denver, Jeff. I mean, I've seen everything. I've seen it go from a 1-day permitting process in 1996 to 14 months.
Really?
I mean, calculate that percentage
reason?
of increase.
What was the reason it's changed so much?
I could go on and on and on. The cost of housing is getting, just the opportunity costs that are missed. But I'm a spec home developer in Denver, infill developer, basically. And for me to hold a piece of land for 12 to 14 months while I wait for permitting costs me so much money. I have to mark it up in the price of the house when I go to sell it. This has been going on gradually for 15 years in Denver.
And is it the county?
This is a major problem.
Is it the county? Because I live out in Elbert County, and I feel like I can watch homes pop up every other day.
Yeah.
But is it?
Jeff, no, it's the county. I just finished building a duplex out in Lyman, Colorado. So that's Lincoln County. I got that building permit in 1 day. 1 day.
And help me understand the specifics of what Denver does that holds it up. Is it the environmentalists? Is it the no growth people? Help me understand specifically what Denver does.
It is just that the system is completely broken. It is just utterly broken. I don't even know what they do in the reports that they need us to file. I'm also an HVAC contractor. It's just insanity, the stuff that they pile onto us. And I don't know what they do. It takes them about 20 minutes to review, like, say, a single family home, for instance. But you get in queue for over a year. And I'm not even exaggerating. That this has been and they wonder where their affordable housing is. It's just
I'm trying to understand what is going to prevent them from wanting to give it to you. I mean, it's Denver. It's not like we're trying to protect, wild spaces. It is the county of Denver. It's already been thoroughly built through. So now you're just trying to improve either a vacant lot or old housing. So why wouldn't they want to approve that quickly so that, builders can get it done and people can be moved in? It doesn't make any sense to me why they would want to delay it so much.
You would wonder why. You've got to wonder why they do this. And I have gotten no good answer. I've probably built over 50 houses in the city and county of Denver over the last 28 years. And there is no justification for it. You can go down there and demand your permit. They'll call security on you. I mean, it's crazy. Even if it's your own land, you want to build a house for your family. In 2015, I wanted to build a house for my family. I waited. So this was 2015. So it wasn't so bad yet. I think I waited 10 months on that permit. 10 months. It took 6 months just to get the wastewater approval. I am not exaggerating, Bill. This is real stuff. And this is real stuff that nobody talks about. And it gets in the way of everything with housing.
Gosh, that Robert, really appreciate your insight on all that. Thanks so much for the phone call. Robert's line will be open 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. I looked up there on the Marshall Fire. Boulder County, Colorado created a streamlined permitting process for rebuilding after they had the fire up there. I remember there being a lot of complaints about how long it was taking there. Land use code text amendments in March of 2022. The Board of County Commissioners approved Article 19500, which combines the planning review and building permit review into one process. Ignition resistant requirements. In June of 2022, the Board of County Commissioners updated the building code to include ignition resistant requirements for wildfire zone 2, which includes the eastern part of the incorporated Boulder County. And then they did a permit prioritization. Cities in like Louisville prioritized permits for repair and reconstruction. Yeah. I mean, well over a year just to be able to build in the county of Denver. Jeez. I don't get it. And when you see all the problems they're facing down on 16th Street Mall, how long it's been taking to build down there. And reports are that the building is contributing to the violence that they're seeing down there because it's inadequate lighting. You don't have clear line of sight, all those problems right down there on the 16th Street Mall. We're doing this to ourselves. And it seems like in the past, previous generations were able to build things a lot quicker than everything that we were having to build today. And I think it probably has a lot to do with the permitting process. All right, we'll get to the phone lines. Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. I want to talk to you about my friend Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. He's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case, right? When you show up with Dan Kaplis, you're sending a very serious message that not only do you have a great guy on values, you've got a real winner on your side, and they're going to want to deal with you, right? Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. In fact, Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, don't wait until the accident happens or the injury happens, and now you're trying to Google and find out where Dan Kaplis is. You might as well put his phone number right now into your phone so you can immediately get a hold of him. Here's it is, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
This is particularly painful to play on a Monday.
Yes, it is. I was thinking that too. I'm like, this is not fair to play this on a Monday. Like, this
Good
just
morning.
reminds you, especially this early on a Monday.
I know.
On the 6th on a Monday. What the hell's the computer doing to us?
Trying to get
So
our bearings
nice.
as we start the
Yeah.
week. And they're like, hey, let me remind you of what it's like Friday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds you of the weekends you don't have anymore. That's great. That's wonderful.
Good morning. Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking permitting, particularly after the LA wildfires. The governor saying we're going to usher in a Marshall Plan to help all these get rebuilt. But are they? How quickly are things rebuilding? Good question here from the bread man. Are they just trying to reimagine these cities? I give a little bit of credence to that because you hear Democrats all the time trying to rebuild the cities to essentially reflect European cities where we ride our bikes everywhere.
Yeah.
But he asked how many of the homes in the Marshall Fire have rebuilt. Look this up. As of December 2024, that's last month, 2/3 of the homes destroyed in the Marshall Fire have been rebuilt. This is a significant improvement over the previous year when only 25% of the homeowners had returned. So I don't think they're maybe, but up in Marshall, they've just rebuilt the homes.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not sure they all have bike lanes up there. But let's go to the phone line. Spencer, Denver. Good morning, Spencer. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you? Hope you had a good weekend.
I'm okay, thank you. So kind of adding to that last caller, when you bring the insurance side of things into this is going to be a nightmare. I don't think the United States has ever seen rebuilding California. Number one, how long before we hear insurance companies are pulling out of California completely? Not only do they have to rebuild a large portion of a city, but it's one of the most expensive cities in the state. And I just want to tell a little story about the insurance companies. I had to have my roof replaced about 8 years ago, and the roofing contractor said they'd take care of all of it. They did. They negotiated with the insurance company because a hailstorm came through our town in Minnesota. And when everything was said and done, and I looked at all the numbers, they replaced that roof for 3 times the cost of what it should have been. And the insurance company approved it. Now, I work for a GC on the commercial side. I can tell you that about 8 years ago in Minnesota, to replace a roof, you were looking at about $175 to $250 a square. And a square is a 10-foot by 10-foot area that they use to calculate your roof. So if your roof is 100 square feet, well, then you've got 10 squares. That roofing contractor charged 3 times the cost, $600 a square, and the insurance company approved it. Now, my question is it not possible that this is occurring everywhere, especially in Colorado with the hail damage that we get? And we ask ourselves, well, why are insurance companies wanting to pull out, or why can't I get my home rebuilt for the cost of what it should be? And this is a prime example of why that is. And it's either insurance companies not doing their due diligence, or just people being like, you know what, here's an opportunity to make a massive amount of money, I'm going to do it. This is going to be a nightmare in LA.
Yeah, I think you're right, Spencer. It's going to be a nightmare. And I think it's kind of a horse apiece that some contractors understand that certain insurance companies don't pay close attention, and they will just write the check simply because they have so much money, and they're not going to notice that it is 3 times what the average cost is. And I also think in part that's somewhat how the insurance company functions. There was something that we talked about last week. I don't know if you were with us, where we already talked about how State Farm has been pulling out of California already. They canceled about 1,600 policies in Palisade 3 months ago. They didn't know about the fire. They had no, so this wasn't, hey, a fire's coming, we're not going to cancel you. They didn't know, but they canceled because they were talking about profitability and financial solvency. And you know, they're a mutual company. They have billions, but the laws are written so that if you draw insurance premiums in a state, you can't use them in another state. However, given the fact that State Farm was worried about their financial solvency in California, my butt's sitting on the couch this weekend watching the NFL playoffs, and I'm seeing Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
They're advertising State Farm Insurance. And I'm thinking, if we weren't paying Patrick Mahomes and we weren't buying spots on NFL playoff games, what's the financial stability look like for the company?
I had that thought. Is this why my premiums are so high? Because I'm paying Patrick Mahomes to advertise?
Yes, and they throw Andy Reid in there too. I'm sure Andy showed up for free, of course. Of course he did. Yes, exactly.
Listen, so I think in Florida, they've talked about how DeSantis is subsidizing the insurance companies to get them to stay.
Yeah.
And there's the threat of them pulling out here in Colorado, and the governor's working with them on that. In California, I mean, my dad worked for Ohio Casualty back in the 80s. They pulled out in the early 90s, and it was just a precursor for what was to come. But for everyone upset about their insurance premiums, or if anyone's ever had to go through a major loss, this, you know all too well, the writing on the wall and what's about to come. And this kind of bleeds into the caller from last week who smugly stated that the $230 billion that federal tax money that comes from California versus the $15 billion they got back and making it, that's not socialism. Listen, that $234 billion was federal money. The state money that should have been going to preventing this from occurring has been pushed into social programs. They are prioritizing social programs over things like clearing brush to prevent the city of LA from burning to the ground. That is stupidity.
Or you have this reservoir that was sat empty for a year because they were going to fix the roof on it. And when reporters went out over the weekend to check on this reservoir that they would have drawn water from in order to help fight the fires, no construction, nothing taking place, no sign of construction taking place. That thing has sat empty for nearly a year now. And all under the guise that they were going to be doing some repairs to it. And they just haven't been. The other thing to point out, too, is it hasn't been easy on insurance companies in California to be able to adjust their rates. Part of the challenge that these companies are facing is that you have to go through a whole process with the state of California in order to adjust your rates. And originally this was passed in order to protect consumers from having, surprise rates forced upon them all. But part of the consequences of that is that insurance companies don't want to go through the entire process of working with the state of California in order to raise their rates.
Yeah, well, 4 years ago, my neighbor's house burned down on Christmas Day. The son was trying to be helpful, and he cleaned out the fireplace. He put the embers into a box. He put the box in the garage.
Oh, jeez.
It took them a year and a half to get that house rebuilt, and the neighbor came to me and said, the insurance company is telling me it's going to cost more to rebuild my house than what my insurance policy covers. Well, the end of that story is he ultimately told me, the insurance agent explained to him that insurance companies, they'll take whatever your house is insured for, which is typically the value of it. And every year they kind of increase it by 20% based on trends. They also have a shadow fund in insurance companies that are kind of meant as a stopgap for when that specific thing happens. But the insurance company, I guarantee you, is not set up with a buffer zone, a stopgap for half of a major metropolitan area.
Yep.
The governor and the state is going to have to step in and help subsidize this. And I just hope that residents of Colorado look at this as a prime example of how bad it could be, and we start making changes to prevent this from happening, because we are as susceptible to fires as California is.
Yeah,
and
although Spencer, I understand the idea, but I'm less convinced by the idea that it was an either or, that either we had to be able to take care of the fires and do the construction, or we had to have these woke policies. I believe that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I would point to, Florida has, as far as a a very red state. They're having insurance problems, and as you accurately pointed out, the state is now subsidizing their insurance policies, and that only takes away all the big risk. That's just putting all the dangerous people into one risk pool, and then that puts the state on the hook for them. So I'm not certain that I'm sold it's always the woke policies. And here would be the problem that I would have with that is you may have some I do have some things with you that I think you're right about the direction of the woke policies, possibly. The idea being that if you would focus more on some of the impact of the climate change, like clearing the forest, I think you have something. However, if you went to a very red state and said, because of climate change, we need to be more worried about the wildfires and taking care of controlled burns in the forests, that would be a difficult sell, because in a red state, they're not convinced the climate is changing in the first place.
Spencer, great call. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
man.
I've got to run up against a break here. We've got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. If you're like me on a Monday morning, you're just trying to kick it off, so we can help you with a little You Choose the News.
Yes, let's bring a little bit of silliness and ridiculousness into your Monday, because we're probably the only ones that are going to do it, because Monday sucks, be honest. Here we are. Okay, this is what we call You Choose the News. It's everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. I have scoured the interwebs for moments this morning to find really dumb stories about us humans so that we can play this fake radio news game show once I give them even dumber headlines. And remember, nobody in charge is up this hour. We've got about 10 minutes until they wake up, so shh, this is our little secret. Do not tell them, or I'm going to have to talk to HR again. They already have a big, long file on me, so they don't like, I'm on speed dial. Okay, here we go. Blake Olson is joining us from the newsroom. Jeff Hunt is in the studio. Gentlemen, here are your headlines today. Headline number 1, if you like this, I can get you the really good stuff. Headline number 2, using ill-gotten gains to join the club. Headline number 3, toxic males to the rescue. And headline number 4, dangerous recycling. Mr. Hunt, your choice, sir.
Toxic males to the rescue.
Yes, toxic males to the rescue. Scientists are trying to find maybe the toxic males are the key to eliminating diseases spread by mosquitoes. No, they're not getting the chads to run around and smack all the mosquitoes and kill them. They're actually trying to make the male mosquitoes toxic. The science hippies are experimenting with inserting poisonous proteins into the male mosquito sperm. So when they mate, they then will end up either killing the females or making them, sterile. Now, here's the thing. There are about 3,500 species of mosquitoes, but there are only about 5 to 10 different species that spread diseases that are dangerous to us. So they're not trying to kill all the mosquitoes because there is a benefit there. They're just trying to make sure that we don't get sick. And they're calling this, using it, the toxic male technique. Right now, it reduces the lifespan of the female fruit fly by about 60% in experiments. They're hoping to lessen it even more. The only other problem, they say, is they're going to have to reproduce these toxic males over and over because obviously the females don't breed. So they're not going to breed in the wild. So, but again, job program, you can, make toxic male mosquito sperm, which looks good on a business card, I guess. So, yeah. Okay. Blake Olson in the news department. Here are your headlines, sirs. If you like this, I can get you the really good stuff. Headline number 2, using ill-gotten gains to join the club. Or headline number 3, dangerous recycling.
Oh, I hate recycling. Let's go with dangerous recycling.
Dangerous recycling. The government of Belgium is telling residents there, hey, it's a good idea to recycle your Christmas tree. Just don't eat your Christmas tree.
Oh,
yes, that is
that
actually what they're
problem?
telling people. Yes, it is. And now why? Because there is a city in Belgium where it's going viral, a suggestion to help recycle by making spruce needle butter. Yes, exactly what it sounds like. Gathering up the needles that fall off your tree and then turn them into butter, which is a really bad idea. Because the evergreen needles can be a little toxic, but more importantly, in order to make these trees grow, oftentimes they are sprayed with pesticides or even fire retardant materials, of which will also be existent in your butter.
Yeah,
we
not
feed
a good
ours
thing.
to our goats.
See?
We just take them down. And,
See, there you go. That's
and
okay.
They love them.
Oh, I'm sure, but it's okay with them. But the thing is, now the people that are in the small Belgian city are saying, hey, Scandinavian cooks came up with this idea and turned out not to be quite so true. Scandinavian food historians say, no, not a widespread tradition. It is not at all. Not a lot of people did that in Scandinavia, and most of them that did got sick or died. So it wasn't really a good thing to do.
Spruce needle butter.
Yes, but again, you wouldn't think that in 2025 you would have to have a government come out and go,
right?
People, don't eat your Christmas tree.
Here we are. Knowing TikTok and X and Instagram, I'm surprised it's not a bigger trend.
Alrighty, Mr. Hunt, your choice, sir. Final choice this morning. If you like this, I can get you the really good stuff, or using ill-gotten gains to join the club.
Using ill-gotten gains to join the club.
Yes, using ill-gotten gains to join the club. The state of Florida is suing a healthcare company after they accidentally paid them millions of extra dollars. And then allegedly the CEO of that healthcare company used the overage to run for Congress.
Nice.
Yeah. Here's the deal. Back in 2021, Florida's Division of Emergency Management contacted Trinity Healthcare Services. They were supposed to assist in registering residents for COVID-19 vaccinations. Now they did the job. And the agency intended to pay Trinity Healthcare Services right around $50,578. But erroneously, someone in the accounting department added a couple of zeros on the end of the number. Whoopsies. That turned the check into $5,057,850. That's going to be a really fun performance evaluation. That's going to be fun when you have that end of year conversation. But despite the error, guess what? Trinity Healthcare Services never returned the extra money. They said, thank you for the extra millions. We will keep them. It's a healthcare company. What were you expecting? They're not giving it back.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Now, they also gave a bonus to the CEO because obviously she did a bang-up job. Now, since she did the bang-up job, they're alleging she used some of that extra money to loan it to herself and then ran for Congress for a seat she won. So
now she's now in Congress.
Yes. So let's review. The state of Florida overpays a healthcare company by millions of dollars. The healthcare company does not give that money back. The CEO then allegedly takes that money, loans it to herself, runs for Congress to join the very same government. Ta-da!
Sheila
just not perfect or what?
Phyllis McCormick.
Yes, that is who she is. I'm not about to say that name on the air because I know, but still, she the whole company. No, we're not giving the money back, and then she gave it to herself so she could run to Congress, and now she's running the government that overpaid her in the first place. Yeah, and you wonder why we can't have nice things. That's it. That's the end of You Choose the News.
Really?
Yeah, I know. A lot of depression, silliness, and frivolity here in the morning. Yeah, back to you, sir.
Everyone's just crawling back into bed this
Yes,
morning.
just go back to bed.
Can't deal with
No,
it.
not this is reality.
All the corruption.
Yep.
All right, we'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, January 13th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're waking up in the greatest country in history and heading into work. Brand new week. We got an entire show planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Prior to taking office, LA's mayor, Karen Bass, said she wouldn't go abroad. She wasn't going to travel because prior to this, she sat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. But now she'd been criticized for being out of the country when the wildfires broke out. 3 years ago, she had promised in an interview to cut back on her world travel and focus on the city. I want to ask you this too, because our mayor tends to travel. He likes to go to football games. You think the mayor should be sticking close to home? Because you never know when an emergency could break out and they need to be there to coordinate response. Want to get answers and thoughts from you. Phone lines are open 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line at 720-819-5115. And are we choosing people? Are we choosing mayors based upon their actual leadership capabilities or because of their kind of political persuasions? They're pro-choice. Therefore, I'm going to choose them. Well, does that really matter? Is it better to have somebody that can actually manage a city as a chief executive? We'd love to hear from you, but first, let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 14 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 36 today. Our top story, police arrested a suspect last night and say he's connected to the weekend stabbings that left 2 dead and 2 injured in downtown Denver Saturday night. His identity will be released today. An American Airlines flight attendant has been identified as one of the victims of the deadly weekend stabbings in Denver. The Phoenix-based flight attendant, Celinda Levno, was a victim of senseless crime, says her employer. A friend of the flight attendant told Denver 7 that she was stabbed to death while walking along the 16th Street Mall on Saturday night. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested for a deadly shooting that happened in Aurora last week. A man was shot outside his home on East 62nd Drive on Thursday night. Investigators say the man saw a suspicious car near his home just before the shooting. Police identified the car and conducted a traffic stop on Friday, arresting the teen suspect on an outstanding warrant. He's now facing a charge of first-degree murder in connection with the man's death.
My humble position, and it's not just being naively optimistic, that only reinforces the imperative moving quickly.
He's never had a humble position ever. California Governor Gavin Newsom is evil. Firefighters working around the clock to contain the fires burning through the LA area. The forecast calls for more high winds, which could fuel the flames. Fueling the flames are probably also arsonists. I've seen over 15 videos already of guys lighting fires. How about that climate change, right? So far, the Palisades fire is the most destructive in LA history, burning more than 23,000 acres and leaving homes and businesses in ashes. So the snake in the slick back hair, he's ready to continue this grand plan.
A Marshall Plan. We already have a team of looking and reimagining LA 2.0, and we're making sure everyone's included, not just the folks on the coast, people here that were ravaged by this disaster.
You just said you're organizing a Marshall Plan for the rebuilding of California. What is that Marshall Plan? Tell us about this Marshall Plan.
We're just starting to the layout. I mean, we're still fighting these fires. So we're already talking to city leaders. We're already talking to civic leaders. We're already talking to business leaders and nonprofits. We're talking to labor leaders. We're starting to organize how we can put together a collection of individuals on philanthropy for recovery, how we can organize the region.
Oh, I bet you can't wait.
You're going to live in a house with six other
yes.
people, eat crickets, and ride your bike to work.
Exactly. Absolutely. Those 15-minute cities, your refrigerators and ovens and your microwaves and everywhere in your house, it'll be so convenient and easy to live, and they will videotape you everywhere you go.
I mean, I'm looking
microphones
at this,
all over the place.
I'm looking at this video of Lahaina. This guy drove through in October and did a drone tour of Lahaina.
Yes.
That they haven't rebuilt much at all.
Oh, they haven't?
No.
Okay.
It-
Well, they're
it's
just
sat
they're
there.
getting ready for people to forget, so they can build that thing up the way they want it. I mean,
this is when did the Lahaina fire take place?
I think it's 3 years ago, wasn't it? Was it 3?
Lahaina fire.
May
But
have
anyways, I mean, it
been-
looks
yeah.
as bad in
Does it?
October as it did. Yeah, it was 2023, so 2 years ago.
Oh wow!
But it looks as bad in October as it did
Does it?
as Palisades looks right now.
Well, but Jeff, they got to wait for the trees to grow back so they can get all the get the sidewalks going and the plumbing and electrical and get all nice. I cannot believe any of these people. And it just, yes, it's incompetence, but at the same time, you could just see the evil work in here. And who knows what's going on from North Carolina to California. And they allow all this crap to happen. And what you said with the reservoir right above Palisades, the Palisades emptied. Come on. It's all by design. 5, in my opinion. Yes, I said that it's by design. 5 people have been indicted in a Denver Metro home remodeling scheme, according to the Colorado Attorney General's office. Schwalb Builders and Avi's Remodeling and Contracting owners, Sean Schwalb and Alvi Schwalb, along with 3 employees, are accused of carrying out the widespread scheme from July 2021 through December of 2024 in the Denver area. The group allegedly solicited home remodeling contracts, collected customer deposits, and then failed to complete any of the work. According to investigators, they received over $1 million in customer funds that they never used on projects or returned to customers who asked for a refund. The Senate opens confirmation hearings this week for some of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. They will look at controversial pick, former Fox News host and veteran Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, John Barrasso from WIO.
Well, he certainly has the qualities that we need to lead the Pentagon. He knows about a fit fighting force. He is very qualified, in my opinion. He has a distinguished record of service in the military. Every senator gets to speak for themselves, and they will do that. The meetings have gone very well. Things are heading in the right direction.
So we will see. It all kicks off tomorrow.
Have to disrupt it.
2nd and 4. There's Nix going for the long ball. He's got a step on him. And the Broncos strike early with the touchdown to Franklin from 43 yards out.
Huge play early. They took the lead, the Broncos did, but the Bills answered and never looked back.
Big play here. Trying to go up top for
He
it.
wants to run for it, Jim. He wants to just go get it with his legs. He's trying to find
It
the
wasn't
opening.
there, so now he's got to throw it deep to the end zone. And was that caught? Yes! Ty Johnson scrapes it off the ground, above the ground for the touchdown.
Broncos fall to the Bills Sunday in the wild card round of the playoffs, 31-7, the final.
All right, you called it, Blake.
Oh, I think who called the upset? Who
I thought
Billy thought the
thought
Broncos may have pulled off the upset.
No, that was Jeff. Jeff
Yeah,
was the
Oh, that was
upset.
Jeff did.
Yeah.
Jeff did.
Eternal
Sorry.
optimist.
I had it
I was
written
the-
down
Bo
here.
Nix
Yeah.
fan.
I said the Jeff and I had the same score.
Uh-huh.
but we reversed who was going to win. We both said 28-21, and he said Broncos
That's
win,
right.
and I said Denver.
Yep.
I said, all right, and I said Bills win
That's
on that
right.
one.
That's
But we
right.
were close to how many points the Bills were going to score.
Yeah.
Broncos, not so much. Not so
you
much.
know,
Hey, Blake, what was your score?
I think I said 26-14 Bills. I think it kind of unfolded the way I thought.
All right, Mr. Sportsman, give me your read on the Broncos. How
Yeah, thoughts on
they
it.
do this season, and what does
Well,
the future,
I'm real-
what does the
I mean,
future look like?
You start with the quarterback. So Bo Nix, I am very impressed with him. That guy, he looks mature. He looks beyond his years. He can move in the pocket. He's tough. He's got a great arm. He doesn't care about other people. He just does his job. And I'm very, very impressed with him. So I think the sky's the limit for him, in my opinion. I mean, that was his rookie season.
Yeah.
And he takes that team to the wild card playoffs. And yeah, he's got to watch the interceptions, but then every quarterback has to do that. But I'm just really impressed by him. I mean, I watched him in Oregon, but sometimes you don't know if that stuff translates. So I think the Broncos have a good quarterback. The orange pants look great. I would prefer right at the end of the pant, Billy.
Yeah.
They need to go blue and then white. But
That'd be nice.
I
Yeah.
like
The
I
orange
don't
pants
like,
with the white shirt was nice, though. That was cool.
No, it was.
Yeah.
I don't like the pants that look like you're wearing leatards out there, you know.
There need
like
to be
just
a little bit
straight
of flair on them somewhere. Yeah.
Maybe a little
Something.
a little mane
Flair
little,
and leotards.
flare.
Yeah.
Look like
There needs to
Elton
be a little bit
John
of- there
out
needs to be a
there.
little accent.
Yes.
Well, I'm not talking
Yes.
fringe because that'd be weird. But
Yeah,
again, we're
yeah.
cowboys, so why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, when a fringe might be
No.
interesting. We could bring that back from the 70s. It was
There you go.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch the playoff games over the weekend because it was the AFC West teams that seemed to be, in my mind, exposed as the pretenders inside the playoffs, because it was the Chargers and the Broncos that, in my mind, from what I saw, performed the worst. And now,
Yes.
some of that has to do with who they were playing. Houston is on a roll right now.
Man, Texans are impressive.
They really are. And if they bring that defensive pressure and intensity into Kansas City, Mahomes and Kelsey and company are going to have a lot of problems with them.
I agree with
Yeah.
you. And they don't have anything to lose.
No, they're playing with house money at this point, so they might as well go for it.
Absolutely.
The Baltimore and Buffalo is going to be fun. That's going to be, they've got the professional slap league where two guys stand in front of each other and slap each other in the face. That's what that game is going to be. It's just going to be two heavyweights standing there going,
Yes,
pow, and then
I
your turn,
agree.
pow. It's
So
gonna
who do
be-
you
yeah.
who do you think should be the MVP?
Oh,
Sorry to interrupt.
God, that's a tough one. Right now, I'm really leaning towards, depending on how it turns out, I'm really leaning towards Lamar Jackson.
Same here.
I really am. Yeah,
I think he deserves it.
I do too.
I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, after watching you yesterday, I mean, Josh Allen is impressive, incredible, but man, Lamar Jackson, I believe he does deserve it this season. And I mean, they're going to be tough to stop.
For me, it's everything that Lamar Jackson is like leveling up your character, in which you start out with like a Doug Flutie, and then you kind of get to a Michael Vick, and then you kind of get to a Tim Tebow, and then you finally get to the Lamar Jackson. That's kind of like the final one, because each one of them have different aspects of it.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
everything comes together in that. Or it's almost like playing, I don't know, old school video games, Mega Man, where you're picking off different powers from different bosses. And it's almost like Lamar Jackson has, beaten enough bosses where he has amassed, a larger group of powers. They're really impressive. And some of those teams are fun. And Washington is the only road team that won this weekend too.
I know.
Which is really interesting.
I can't root for them, not until they go back to the Skins.
That's a hard one. See, for me, I would love to see them go back to the old logo. I wish they would pick a different name other than the Redskins. I wish they would use the tribe name.
I would go for that.
What's the tribe name? Blackfeet?
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever it is. I really don't know.
Wasn't it Chief Blackfeet?
It could be, but whatever it is, I wish they would use that. I think that would be neat.
Yeah, I like
that'd be kinda
that.
cool.
No,
But
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. But the logo is classic. And,
Yeah.
And the commanders, the generals.
Oh, the commanders is
Who?
stupid, and the logo is dumb.
Right.
Who cares? What the heck is a commander?
Yeah, it's
Stupid.
it's really stupid. But
I
it was so much
agree.
fun, and Bo Nix looks really good.
He
Again,
does,
we have
man.
hope. We have hope, and it was a nice temperature check. Anybody that's played organized team sports knows that occasionally you step onto the field with a team that you're not on their level. And you're like, oh, this is going to be tough. And we were not on Buffalo's level. They do some things that we can't. And they made us do some things that we couldn't. So, hat tip
But it
to
wasn't,
them.
it really wasn't embarrassing. And,
No.
they there's a future for
Yeah, there is.
Knicks and the Broncos.
And
So
I think
it's a bright future.
You bring in a couple of, maybe one lineman and a couple of people on defense. You get another interior lineman, you get another outside rusher, and maybe another middle linebacker, and you've got a really good team. What I was really encouraged by is I think that our wide receivers are kind of a nice group of no-name performers. I don't think we have to have that big superstar, but everybody does their job well. And I like that. I like that group that we have because each one of them can create problems for the other team as long as we're using them properly. I'm really happy with where we are in certain places. So it's kind of cool.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, it was encouraging if you're a Bronco fan. All right, 10 degrees in Boulder, 12 in Englewood, 14 in Denver. It is Monday. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Fair weather to start the week here in Denver. Just a little chilly. Temperatures are going to be in the 30s today and tomorrow. Might make the 40s Wednesday. The warmest day of the week will be Thursday. We're going to see generally fair, dry conditions. Nights in the teens and lower 20s. Increasingly cloudy Friday, turning cooler late. Then it's going to be much, much colder by Friday night and the weekend with a chance of light snow. An Arctic front will be paying Colorado and the Front Range a visit by the weekend. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Do you blame Mayor Karen Bass for being out of the country when the fires kicked off? The New York Times giving her a dig on this. At the first rally in her campaign for mayor of Los Angeles in 2021, Karen Bass spoke candidly about what she saw as a potential drawback to the job, a lack of world travel and involvement in global affairs. Ms. Bass was accustomed to circulating the globe as a Democratic member of Congress and of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and had spent decades working on U.S.-Africa relations. It was one of the most absorbing parts of her political career, she told the New York Times in an interview in 2021 at her home in Baldwin Vista neighborhood of Los Angeles. I went to Africa every couple of months, all the time, she said. The idea of leaving that, especially the international work and the Africa work, I was like, I don't think I want to do that. She ultimately decided that she did, telling the Times that if she was elected mayor, not only would I, of course, live here, but I would also not travel internationally. The only places I would go would be DC, Sacramento, San Francisco, and New York in relation to LA. That pledge, the New York Times says, has been spectacularly broken when a cascade of deadly and destructive wildfires erupted across the Los Angeles region on Tuesday. The mayor was on her way home from Ghana in West Africa, where she had attended the inauguration of the new president. It was not her first trip abroad as mayor. A review of her public daily schedule for the past year shows that Miss Bass has traveled out of the country at city expense at least 4 other times in recent months before the Ghana visit, once to Mexico for the inauguration of the new president there, and 3 times to France for the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. 3 times. 3 times. Her broken promise to cut off overseas travel and her busy international schedule since becoming mayor in December of 2022 scarcely registered with the public before the wildfires. And Los Angeles voters accepted, and in some case even welcomed the mayor's identity, not just as a municipal leader, but as a Washington-style global player. Now, though, her decision to leave the country at a time when the National Weather Service was warning of extreme fire weather conditions has set off a political crisis for Miss Bash. What do you think of that, Bill? Being out of the country that much when she promised she was not going to be traveling internationally.
I'm of two minds on this one. One, I think it is wrong. If she promised not to be traveling, then you just don't. I fail to see why it is difficult to maintain that promise. And so I think it's fair to critique her. Although the critique about her being out of town when the fire started, I'm not certain what direct response she was going to be able to do. She can't magically make water appear. She couldn't have, she's not running any of the fire trucks. She's not doing any of the hose lines. I'm not certain. In fact, I don't, that's the thing is I'm not certain what greater role she could have accomplished being there on the ground or in an airplane or even in Ghana. But I do think that it is 110% fair to critique her for just traveling and not being there and saying, you said you weren't going to travel, and then when we had an emergency, which it would be an advantage, at least probably just based on lines of communication, for you to be here, you probably should be here. That's where I will throw all the rocks in the world at her, saying, when you said that promise, and again, no one forced her to. It wasn't something in the legislature that was passed. It wasn't the LA City Council. She made this choice of her own volition. She decided, I'm going to make this pledge, and then decided that she didn't want to honor the pledge. Yeah, it is fair to call her out and then critique her and say, if you would have followed your original pledge, perhaps communication and other things could have happened quicker, and we could have had a quicker response here. I think 110% fair. And although I worry that this gets in the way of fighting the fires and dealing with some of the actual problems, I don't think that this necessarily led to the fires, nor did it necessarily hamper the response at the beginning. But is it asinine and stupid? And is it fair to call her out for not honoring a pledge that she made of her own? Yes, absolutely. And does it show that maybe she's not as concerned about fulfilling all pledges or as concerned about her constituents versus going around to... What bothers me is she went to the Paris Olympics. Why? Unless she was there.
I actually give her a pass on that because
why?
She's the next city. So there was one moment.
Okay,
there was one moment where they passed the Olympic flag.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but not 3 times. You don't need to go.
No.
You go the one time.
Yeah. The other part for me is, I would love to know what information, and again, hopefully when she was there, she wasn't going as a tourist. She wasn't there visiting the games and walking around. I would assume that there were some meetings taking place about what were the things you had to work on. What were the logistics? What about the Olympic Village? What are the problems getting people to the events? What are the problems with seating people? What do you have, especially with fake tickets? How do you deal with that? But I would also am assuming most of that can be accomplished through a Zoom meeting with a translator. So I'm not certain that has to be a face-to-face interaction. And it really worries me that after pledging not to go travel abroad, she goes to 2 different inaugurations. That I don't see any reason to.
The Mexican president.
Either one of them, I don't care. The other for me is it's just the idea of you can easily demur and say, I would love to be there. It's wonderful. Send a fantastic fruit basket. One of those baskets of mini muffins. I don't know. Something like that. And just send it over there. But they're cookies. They put them on sticks like they're lollipops. Do the cookie stick things. Send that there and say, I promised my constituents and I need to be here because I have the work to do. But I wish you all the best and blah, 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 blah. That's fine. That's easy to do.
So I do disagree with you in the sense of the needing to be there to coordinate a response.
Yeah.
So you're the chief executive of the city. You're the one that has to make key decisions, and she's doing it all via Wi-Fi as she's flying back from Ghana to the United States. And I think she had to do a layover. That's where one of the reporters jumped on her while she was waiting a layover. I think you need to be there. And I hold Ted Cruz to the same standard when he went to Mexico during the ice storm.
Yeah.
Like when you're the elected official, like you're the last stop in all decision making on the ground. So, where am I willing to draw the line? Should Mayor Mike Johnston get on a plane to Dublin to honor the very first trip to Dublin? I'm not so sure.
No.
I almost think you kind of just need to plant yourself in the community you're serving and hang out there. Now, I do give her a little bit of, I say you should go to Paris for the passing of the flag and to represent Los Angeles. And now Los Angeles is going to become the focus of the 2028 Olympics. By the way, Charlie Kirk calling for the Olympics to change. He doesn't think that LA can handle it, which is another question. I'm happy to get responses on that. But should the mayor stay close to home? Because you never know when these are going to break out. And the New York Times even pointing out she had received warnings that these fires could happen. And she still took off for Ghana. So do you hold her accountable for taking off? Give me a call. Do you think our governors, our mayors, our chief executive leaders should stay close to home as it relates to these crises? Because you never know when they're going to pop up. And it's your duty. It's your responsibility to be there to provide leadership, to care for the people that elected you. And you're attending an inauguration in Ghana? Seems like you want to be more allotted by people outside of your community than actually doing the work.
You just want
to
the
serve
perks.
them.
You want the free perks. That's all it is. It's perks. That's what the reason you're going to Ghana for that is just to say that, hey, I traveled to Ghana and the inauguration is fairly irrelevant. Yeah, that's just a perk type of a thing. And I understand and I believe you do have a fair point that communication is going to be quicker. Things are going to be more decisive if she's there. However, I do kind of think that if she's in the air, etc., you kind of just tell the fire chief, you make the decisions to the best of your ability. Oh, no, just you make the decisions to the best of your ability. I'm empowering you to make these decisions in order to decide where these resources go and how this goes. And if you need me, get back in touch with me, kind of a thing, and say, I'm not going to have Wi-Fi for the next hour or so.
Want to hear from you? Phone lines are open. You can hear the ringing in the background, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. I want to talk to you about my friends over at QC Kinetics. Look, are you going to start the new year dealing with the same old joint pain, losing sleep, not able to take walks, or do what you love because of your knees or hips? Don't do it. Take action now to get the pain relief you deserve for 2025. Give QC Kinetics a call now. Say goodbye to shoulder and back pain. QC Kinetics local media professionals are now waiting for you. Their advanced protocols in regenerative medicine. All right, so what is that? Joel in our office here uses it. They withdraw some blood, they spin out and get to the plasma. It has special healing properties. You then inject it back into the joint and it goes to work. It's your own body healing your body. Right? No drugs, no downtime, no steroid shots. QC Kinetics uses healing properties of your own body to attack the root cause of your pain, revitalizing your joints so you can move. Again, this is the future of medicine. If you've been told surgery is your best or only option, you deserve a second opinion. Find out if all-natural regenerative medicine is right for you. Call QC Kinetics now. The consultation is free, and you can use HSA or FSA dollars. So live your best life in 2025. Phone number 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986 with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch, and the Springs. QC Kinetics, non-surgical regeneration. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, being in Ghana when the fire broke out after she took a pledge during the campaign that she wasn't going to travel internationally. The New York Times doing a whole expose on this. That she's basically, prior to being mayor, she was this big hoity-toity House Foreign Affairs Committee member and member of Congress. She got to travel to Africa on almost like a monthly basis. And then pledged to her people that she wasn't going to, yet has broken that pledge a number of times, traveling to Mexico, traveling to Paris 3 times during the Olympics, and then heading to Ghana for the inauguration of the new president. Meanwhile, she was warned that these wildfires could break out, and instead trying to adjust on the way home and get responses to this wildfire while she was in the air, had a layer. Oh, what a disaster. Should you hold these elected officials accountable? Do you expect the mayor of Denver to be sticking around, especially if he's warned there might be a major emergency? Let's go to the phone lines. Dwayne Divide. Good morning, Dwayne. Happy Monday to you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's just a day that ends in Y. We're always on a hustle.
That's right.
What we need to look at with Miss Bass, and besides the fact she should be mounted on the wall singing, take me to the river, why Ghana?
Yeah, I know. I was kind of curious about that one as well.
She was asked to go by the president.
Well, that's nice. I'd like to be asked by the president, go down to Pueblo and just do something. Point is that, she's not mayor of the world. She's mayor of LA. You couldn't pay me enough money to be mayor of LA. And with all that's going on now, all those houses that are burned, how much asbestos, how much old product, how much lead paint is there out there that's going to be, totally toxic for people? And she's standing around with her thumb in her nose going, send out to, go to URL. Really? Are we doing a,
nice
URL?
Callback. That's good. Nice callback.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, come on now. Are we doing Weird Al Yankovic?
This brings up a bigger issue that I think with regards to the electorate. So I think,
dumb?
Yeah. Well, and I think that they prioritize bizarre kind of secondary issues rather than chief executive leadership of a city, right? So a Republican could not get elected mayor of Los Angeles. Why? Because of their inability to lead? No, because of their positions on issues like abortion. So you end up with the electorate going, I'm going to choose Karen Bass because she's pro-choice. Has nothing to do with her ability.
Color.
And nothing to do with her ability to lead a city.
But she's a person of color. She's a person of diversity. She's a person of, equity. She's a person of inclusion. That the biggest problems of all of this.
I understand the critique, but I'm not certain that that's necessarily fair, because we wouldn't say that Trump voters chose him because he's a white male and they're not going to vote for a woman and doesn't think a woman can lead the country. I mean, there is a portion of people that probably believe that, but I'm not certain that painting voters and saying they're only doing it because she has this particular political position or she has this amount of melanin in her skin. I understand the idea of dumb voters, but I think you guys are painting with way too broad a brush. I do believe that they are liberal voters out in California, but I don't think they made that choice based on 1, abortion only, 2, pigment only.
Why don't you think a Republican can get elected mayor of Los Angeles?
Because the vast majority of Republican positions are not palatable to that electorate. Same thing, they can't get elected in the city proper of Denver.
Right.
Same thing.
Like, what do you think those positions are?
No, but what what I disagreed with is you hanging your hat on just the abortion issue. That everyone,
I almost think it's exclusively
abortion,
that.
there it is.
I think it's exclusively that.
Exclusively abortion issue?
I think that becomes like the Trump issue above almost everything else as to why a Republican can't get elected in these states.
Okay. Then why, if Republicans wanted to have power, why wouldn't they just acquiesce on the abortion issue? Is that the hill?
Because it's core to our worldview. It's core to our. But I mean, we're not having discussions on quality of leadership, ability to lead a city or a state, make decisions, all that stuff. They just come in and go, I'm pro-choice, she's pro-life.
But then the idea being, if the majority of the electorate is pro-life or pro-choice, aren't you just acknowledging you're probably going to lose those voters by just taking that position?
Yeah.
Aren't you just cutting off your nose to spite your face? And then you complain, oh, because of my positions, the voters that disagree with my positions don't vote for me. Isn't that just a self-fulfilling prophecy? I mean, if we're worried about getting Republicans elected into these positions, then there should be some bending on some of those positions. And I would point to things like John Fetterman, who is becoming a left-center person as far as government because of where his constituency is. You saw the same thing with Kristen Sinema to a certain point as far as Arizona. Lieberman did a certain thing.
And I
so
think
that's part of what I'm looking at is I don't think it's fair to turn to the electorate and say, oh, my people that believe this because the electorate doesn't agree with them can never get elected. It's a little bit on you too then, isn't it?
I think you to your point, Bill, I think you could maybe have a moderate Republican win in the city of Denver, maybe, but the electorate is not choosing these people based upon their quality of their leadership. They're choosing them based upon their progressive policies, and they're ended up getting screwed over by them.
But could those progressive policies also lead into the quality of their leadership? And so the idea being that that's the type of leader, they want someone that is going to go in this direction rather than going in the other direction. Couldn't that be part of the issue? Is that the direction that the Republicans are saying they need to go, the majority of the electorate doesn't agree with that? Isn't that kind of a problem too?
Yeah, Dwayne, what do you think?
Well, I was like, am I on this thing? I don't believe Miss Bass could run a McDonald's, much less the city of Los Angeles. And I agree both with Billy and with you. You need to be in a position where you can sit there and show leadership. She's shown none at any time. Newsom hasn't shown any at this point either. The biggest problem is that people will sit there and vote for the letters D or R long before they sit there and look at the character or abilities of anyone. We're in a position now where it's tribal, and because it is at such a level of tribalism, it doesn't matter. You could have the best person in the world, but if he's got the wrong letter next to him, they're not going to do anything to improve the city.
Yeah, and I think that's different when you're getting into executive leadership, right? The mayor, the governor, the people that actually make choices to guide an entity forward, not going to have debates down at the state capitol on particular policy issues. And I think that's particularly tragic here. Dwayne, great call. Really appreciate it. Dwayne's line will be open 303-696-1971. Let's go to Chris Lakewood. Good morning, Chris. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just real quick, Bill, I agree with the GOP has to give up like this moral high ground on abortion. We don't like our guns being regulated, right? Yeah. And so a woman's right to choose should also not be held down by the government or funded by the government. I think that's the important part, and I think that would gain a lot of voters like that. But this whole thing about people being present in regards to the mayor, I mean, my political acumen is very limited, but I mean, isn't it common sense if you have these kinds of problems, you should probably be present? But I think the thing is, they've gotten so comfortable with the salaries they make, and these are bright people. I mean, everybody's so critical of our governor, including myself. But I mean, he went to Princeton. He sold his business for like $400 million. I mean, I don't think he's a stupid guy.
No, did stuff that you and I haven't.
The things he does. Yeah, the things that he does. Our freedom index, we're 19th in the nation on the freedom index. Alaska is like number 1. That's the real West, right? And then followed by like somewhere in like Arizona or something. But you know, we just need common sense reform on both sides. I love Fetterman. You know, he's like, I'm not just a Democratic governor or senator of Pennsylvania. I'm everybody's senator. Yeah. And I think everybody, we need that approach.
Let me give you an example that I see in Colorado with the Democrats, how the Democrats approach the Second Amendment. I think the way that they do it is phenomenally stupid. The large majority of the electorate does not agree with things like, outlawing guns that have detachable magazines, classifying everything as an assault rifle or assault weapon. The vast majority of Coloradans don't agree with that. And I believe that the Democrats are way overstepping their boundaries when there could be some common sense changes they could make where they could get people that are gun owners that want responsible gun ownership. I think they're missing that because just like sometimes on the other side, they become intractable and they believe that this is something that we have to all believe. And it becomes a purity test and it prevents the actual governance of the society. We can't come to reasonable solutions because purity tests are getting in the way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I'm not from here. I don't really know much about the history of Colorado. I've been reading up on it lately, but I think just some things don't need to be so nuanced and difficult. I mean, what does the majority of people in the state of Colorado want for themselves? I mean, this place used to be what it used to be like 20, 30 years ago. And what has changed? I mean, is this turning into New York City where the inner city dictates political decisions for the rest of the state? Because that's what it seems like. And let me tell you, New York City is not a nice place either. They've got all the culture, they've got all the food, whatever. But when I think of Colorado, I think of, I don't know, head west, young man. That's what I think of.
Chris,
and I think of all the mountain things.
You're
all
exactly right on
Good,
that. The city of Denver is those progressive leaders are controlling the policies for the rest of the state.
Yeah.
And Denver doesn't have the storied history like a New York does, where it can kind of survive people not wanting to go to it anymore.
And that's a really good analogy. And Chris, I thank you for the phone call. And that's a wonderful, wonderful analogy. I hadn't thought about the idea of the major metropolitan inside of New York City controlling a lot of what happens in the rest of the state. But I think it's very appropriate. I think that's a good analogy that I'm going to have to spend some more time thinking about the implications. Brings up something good. I'm going to think about that later on today, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it. Chris's line is open, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking California wildfires. We're talking the mayor of Los Angeles being out of the country when it happened. And we're talking the problems we have here on the 16th Street Mall. Multiple stabbings over the weekend down there, including a flight attendant who lost her life. Horrible. Let's go to the phone lines. Jay, Denver. Good morning, Jay. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Good morning. Great points from your callers. I'm sitting with some first responders that used to work out there in California before we left. And the way a fire is fought is with Caterpillar tractors. What you do is you get at the top of the mountain and you run straight down the mountain and you make a fire break. And then you go down below where the fire goes from road to road. These are D9 cats. They cost about $1 million. And you cross the fire parallel, and these are firefighters. We're the operators, the equipment, and that fire will not go any further because you make maybe a 50-yard swath, and then you go to the top of the mountain, and there's mountains very steep out there if you've been out, and you make a fire break above because the fire will jump over the top of the mountain and go away. And I found out from friends that still live there that they eliminated all the fire roads because they thought they were ugly. Really? What's ugly about what's going on right now? Horrible.
Wow, that's wild. I hadn't heard about the fire roads. I know how important those are. They eliminated them, just
They
not
eliminated
maintaining them?
Yes, sir. I'll send you pictures.
Yeah,
So
would
listen
you?
to this. In Riverside, Greater San Gabriel Mount. Jeff, didn't you go to school somewhere out there?
I did. Santa Barbara and then Pasadena.
Okay. Pasadena. Love it. So the San Gabriel Mountains are like fingers. They go down. They look like fingers. They go down into the valley because there's so much water. And what happens is real simple. You make a break, tear things up. Yes, you make a mess, but you save the property. And when I'm up there, each one of those peaks of those arroyas is what they're called, are a fire road. It's called a fire break. And friends of mine in Riverside are there, and they are so upset at what these folks that you're talking about have done. So that's how you stop a fire. And if you do not do that, it will consume you, because I think we all know that fire is just like water. It finds a place to go. It is truly evil. I've seen it.
No, Jay, that's a great call. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thanks for the insight on that. And please text us those pictures. I've heard from former forest workers before that that the federal government, particularly during the Clinton administration, was not putting as much money into maintaining those fire roads. But I hadn't heard anything about California.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see where along the line the decision making was made. Was it made through the governor's office? Was it made through a federal office? Was it made through a mayor's office? Was it a city council? I do think there is some questions, especially if Jay's correct, that they thought that they were ugly. I have seen that in some mountain developments as well, where people didn't like some of the rules regarding building and where to build and, water lines and telephone lines and power lines, stuff like that, because of the, quote, ugly factor. Not whether or not it was safer, not whether or not it was more efficient or what had to be done to make sure that things don't go boom. It was more about, I don't like looking at it. And so I'm curious as far as where
Rich
that
people in
decision
making decisions
know,
like that. I'm
exactly.
shocked.
I know,
really.
shocked. Yes, Vale's
Wow,
never
the
dealt with
Aspen
that.
Beaver
Yeah.
Creekites.
Never. Yes, Vale's always well managed. Yes, I know. Oh well. What can we do?
Do you anticipate this being a problem in Colorado? These continued fires. We haven't had anything since the Marshall fire, but with all the insurance problems, do you believe that our state, do you think under Governor Polis, there's being enough done to keep these forests clean from these pine beetle kills, this growing brush, all that stuff?
Or do we all
you
need
wanna
to
see
get our
more?
rakes and go up there and start working?
The Jeff and Billy field trip to the
Yes.
mountains. You can join
Yeah.
us up there. We'd love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader. We are 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, January 13th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're heading to work in the greatest country in history. Let's get after it. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson. Fascinating magazine article in Politico over the weekend. How far can Donald Trump use federal troops, like army troops, in the United States, either around quelling riots or mass deportations? What is he allowed to do? And can troops disobey him in the orders? New York Times even putting together an opinion piece from a philosopher professor at West Point saying, yes, they can. What is this all going to mean? And what is mass deportations going to look like? How far can Trump push all this? That's going to be next. And would you disobey an order from President Trump if he asked you to participate in mass deportations? Or would you be happy to serve with those orders? We'd love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff. Of course, the New York Times is trying to create more chaos and find the most leftist military man at West Point. I'm sure.
I mean, it's gets back into Trump's first term with the Joint Chief of the military there, and he was Milley. Sorry,
Milley,
Milley,
yeah,
right?
Milley,
not Massey. Massey's great. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was actually like directly kind of disobeying the order, talking to China, trying to tell them that, no, we're not going to have a nuclear strike, all that stuff. Was he allowed to do it? Not really. But what these progressives in the military are going to try to lay out is the argument that these orders are illegal and they have a moral duty to the people of the United States above, thinking that Donald Trump is somehow going to like sick troops upon his political enemies. I don't know.
Well, he's a traitor, and so are about 5 or 10 others. It doesn't take a lot of them, and you can see what damage they've done to the military. It's 15 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 36 today. Our top story: police arrested a suspect last night and say he's connected to weekend stabbings that left 2 dead and 2 injured in downtown Denver Saturday night. His identity will be released today, hopefully. An American Airlines flight attendant has been identified as one of the victims. The Phoenix-based flight attendant, Celinda Levno, was the victim of a senseless crime, said American Airlines. A friend of the flight attendant told Denver 7 that she was stabbed to death while walking along the 16th Street Mall on Saturday night. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested for a deadly shooting that happened in Aurora last week. A man was shot outside his home on East 62nd Drive on Thursday night. Investigators say the man saw a suspicious car near his home just before the shooting. Police identified the car and conducted a traffic stop on Friday, arresting the teen suspect on an outstanding warrant. He's now facing a charge of first-degree murder in connection with the man's death. California Governor Gavin Newsom, Dr. Evil, don't be fooled by the slick back hair or be fooled by it. He and lefty commies allowed fires to spark, and who knows if they were started by criminals. I've seen over 15 videos of people starting fires there. The forecast calls for more high winds which could fuel the flames. So far, the Palisades fire is the most destructive in LA history, burning more than 23,000 acres and leaving homes and businesses in ashes. The snake oil salesman is ready for the next phase.
Yeah.
A Marshall Plan. We already have a team of looking and reimagining LA 2.0, and we're making sure everyone's included, not just the folks on the coast, people here that were ravaged by this disaster.
You just said you're organizing a Marshall Plan for the rebuilding of California. What is that Marshall Plan? Tell us about this Marshall
We're just
Plan.
starting to lay out. I mean, we're still fighting these fires. So we're already talking to city leaders. We're already talking to civic leaders. We're already talking to business leaders and nonprofits. We're talking to labor leaders. We're starting to organize how we can put together a collection of individuals on philanthropy for recovery, how we can organize the region, how we can make sure that we are seeking federal assistance for the Olympics more broadly, but also federal assistance for the recovery efforts, and how we can galvanize the community.
Frightening 2.0 and Marshall Plan. Nice. Messy NBC's Jen Psaki is all over it. She is all over it.
So I guess none of us should have been shocked this week when Elon Musk posted that the Los Angeles Fire Department prioritized DEI over saving lives and homes. That's an exact quote. That appeared to be a disgusting dig at the city's fire chief, Kristen Crowley, who has served in the department for decades, rising through the ranks to become the first female and LGBTQ fire chief in LA's history.
JD Vance becomes VP in 7 days. The commies have left an absolute mess, but he is encouraged.
That's why they made Donald J. Trump the president-elect of the United States. So we've got a lot of work to do. I remain fundamentally, and you know this, Shannon, I'll always be an optimist about our country, but I think that optimism has to start with a bit of realism. And the real truth is that Joe Biden has left us a dumpster fire. Donald Trump is going to have to put it out, but he's good at doing that.
The Senate opens confirmation hearings this week for some of DJT's cabinet picks. They'll look at controversial pick former Fox News host and veteran Pete Hegseth for defense secretary and try to smear him as much as possible.
And you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no-nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
NFL playoffs on Sunday.
Have to disrupt it. 2nd and 4. There's Nix going for the long ball. He's got a step on him. And the Broncos strike early with the touchdown to Franklin from 43 yards out.
Huge play by the Broncos. They took the lead and looked really good. Then the Bills answered and never looked back.
Big play here. Trying to go up top for it.
He wants to run for it, Jim. He wants to just go get it with his legs. He's trying to find
it. It wasn't there, so now he's got to throw it deep to the end zone. And was that caught? Yes! Ty Johnson scrapes it off the ground, above the ground for the touchdown.
Bills run past the Broncos 31-7. The final. Head coach Sean Payton.
The things we felt we needed to do on the road to win, we didn't do nearly well enough. Time of possession was heavily tilted in their favor. We struggled consistently, whether it was third downs or running the football, and then we never really had an answer to stop their running game.
Bo Nix, 13 of 22, 144 yards and a touchdown. They finished the season 10 wins, 7 losses. It's 11 in Arvada, 14 in Glendale, and 15 in Denver. It is Monday. Jeff and Billy continue.
I do give a damn.
You liberals, it's all about
I'm not a liberal.
That's all.
I'm not a liberal.
Yeah, you are a liberal.
I am not. No,
and
no.
It's all
I may
about you. Yeah, I think you probably are, Billy. I'm pretty damn sure.
It's still one of the best. Blake Olson News Talk. It is, man. You guys are a great team. Blake Olson News Talk 710 KNUS.
Fair weather to start the week here in Denver. Just a little chilly. Temperatures are going to be in the 30s today and tomorrow. Might make the 40s Wednesday. The warmest day of the week will be Thursday. We're going to see generally fair, dry conditions. Nights in the teens and lower 20s. Increasingly cloudy Friday, turning cooler late. Then it's going to be much, much colder by Friday night and the weekend with a chance of light snow. An Arctic front will be paying Colorado and the Front Range a visit by the weekend. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Are we going to see Army troops marching into Colorado to implement Donald Trump's mass deportations? Well, yes, you could. According to the Insurrection Act, the Politico magazine having a big piece on this over the weekend. The Insurrection Act is a blend of different statutes enacted by Congress between 1792 and 1871. It is the primary exception to the Posse Comitatus Act.
Yeah, Posse Comitatus. Yeah. Easy for me to say.
Yeah, right. I can't believe I got that anywhere close on the first try. Under which federal military forces are generally barred from participating in civilian law enforcement activities. Most Americans may not realize how often presidents have invoked the Insurrection Act, often, in the view of historians, to benefit of the nation. While it has been 32 years since Bush used it to quell the Los Angeles riots, the Insurrection Act was also invoked by President Dwight Eisenhower following the Supreme Court's 1954 Brown v. Board of Education decision. When Ike deployed the 101st Airborne Division with fixed bayonets on their rifles to help desegregate the South. George Washington and John Adams used the Insurrection Act in response to early rebellions against federal authority. Abraham Lincoln invoked it at the start of the Civil War, and President Ulysses S. Grant used it to stop the Ku Klux Klan in the 1870s. So here's where you end up with the debate, okay? The Army go through basic training. Your job is to be a hammer and go out there, be used in foreign affairs to kill. That's the training. You are a killer. You become a killed trainer. Law enforcement in America is trained to do lots of other things, de-escalate situations, right? You end up with riots. They have particular training that takes place there. And what people are wondering is, okay, if Donald Trump uses troops either to quell riots that may take place, think George Floyd, BLM, those types of things, or in mass deportations, how are those troops going to act? Could you end up in scenarios where U.S. military has to fire upon American citizens? That's not legal. And how are troops supposed to respond to these types of orders? Can they just ignore them? Now, from my understanding, reading this article, and I'm not a military man, you're not a military man either, Bill.
Nope.
You are expected to disobey clearly illegal orders. So think Vietnam, entire destruction of villages and the shooting of innocent people. You can, as a soldier, you cannot as a soldier claim, I was just following orders. In fact, you can be court-martialed, imprisoned, because you are expected on clearly illegal orders to disobey them. But, troops have been used to quell riots before. One of the more notable ones was the LA riots that took place in the 90s when President H.W. Bush in 92 deployed soldiers. But part of the confusion was the soldiers weren't trained to deal with rioters. So they didn't know what to do. Some of the guys that were interviewed in this article would keep their chambers unloaded. So they were just kind of standing around with guns to be a show of force, but they weren't ready to pull the trigger and kill an American citizen. So how do you think Donald Trump's going to use these soldiers? Do you think there's a little bit of fear mongering here with the idea that Trump's going to be sending soldiers to deal with political enemies or anything like that? What are your thoughts, Bill?
He wants to use the soldiers. In my mind, it's a desire of his to do a variety of things because he views it, in my mind, again, this is just my opinion, he views it not as the U.S. military, but as Donald Trump's military. He believes that as being the president, he has won a prize, a trophy. He has been named the CEO, and he gets purview over everything. That's just how I feel he's wired. And he feels that the military is an extension of Donald Trump's will and Donald Trump's desires and doesn't understand any possible separation away from the office of the president or the president and what the military can and can't do. I believe that's why he shows admiration for some of the authoritarian leaders and why he thinks it's super cool when they do their big parades in front of them. I remember during the last term, that's one of the things that he wanted. He wanted a big military parade like an authoritarian, where he could stand in front of all of the troops and all of the military equipment and watch it go by him, so they would all have to salute him. There's no functional reason that any of our military should be wasting time or planning doing something like that. It does not accomplish a single thing other than to assuage his ego. That's how he looked at. He asked, I believe, during the BLM protests, we have reporting that he asked if the National Guard could go out and shoot some of the protesters. Not kill them, but he just said shoot them in the legs. That's what he wanted. He also asked if the protesters at the church could be shot before they used tear gas in order to clear them out. Remember, in order to take a press op, he had National Guard troops move protesters out of an area because he wanted to take pictures. So I think that all the evidence shows that he views the military as an extension of his will and desire. He's just got to figure out how he can do this. And the problem he's going to have, in my mind, is that he has civilians that are going to be part of his administration. And eventually those civilians are going to have to convince people that have stars on their shoulders that this is what they have to do. And that could be a very difficult sell, because those people with stars on their shoulders understand at a much deeper level what the military purpose is, what they have the capabilities to do, and they understand that it is not at the whim or desire of any person that is sitting inside of the Oval Office.
So I disagree. As you can imagine, I think
yes.
I think Donald Trump sees the destruction that can happen when rioters like in the BLM riots can do to small businesses, to communities, to the lives of people in that towns, and hates weak-minded governors that allow this type of destruction to continue. They don't stop it. They don't prosecute it. They coddle it. And you see cities, towns, states destroyed under this type of rioting. He hates it, and he's not going to allow it to continue to happen. He's willing to demonstrate force against it. I think that's one aspect. Secondly, on mass deportations, I think what he'll plan to do is use law enforcement, use ICE in these cities and in these communities to implement federal mass deportation orders and laws. Okay. So he'll expect them to do that. There may be riots in response to that, and federal troops will be used to quell those riots. I don't think, from my perspective at this point, he's going to use the troops to implement mass deportation orders. I think they're going to be there to keep the peace, similar to what you saw in 1992 during the riots that took place in Los Angeles. Now, that's just going to require some training. And the article in Politico gets into this, that troops have to respect the civil rights of people. So you can't just open fire on them. You can't just arrest them. You can't just break down their doors and seize things and those types of things. All those constitutional rights, and I believe conservatives expect this. I think the American people expect this, that Donald Trump will respect those. And if they're not being respected, then there'll be concerns. But with regards to the destruction you've seen in cities in the past, with progressive leaders coddling these types of rioters, you're not going to see those in Donald Trump's second administration. And I believe he's right to kind of tamper down those types of riots. Would love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Do you think Donald Trump is going to use troops as his own personal army, like Billy said? Or do you believe, like with me, that he's tired of the destruction happening in these cities? He's going to use them to keep peace. And what are kind of the issues you have to balance in all this? Give me a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplos Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Phone lines starting to come in. Billy's going to get to those. I'll talk to you about advanced hair restoration. Look, if the last couple of years have taught us one thing, this new year, it's to value the things we can control. And addressing hair loss is no exception. Our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration can reverse years, even decades of hair loss with their simple one-day treatment. Your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day, and your new hair is backed by the Advanced Hair Guarantee. It works on bald spots, receding hairline, thinning hair, men, women, younger, wiser. Advanced Hair can address many different patterns of hair loss. Advanced Hair's top-rated physicians, like Dr. Tanya Pauls, have changed tens of thousands of people's lives, and now it's your turn. Schedule your free consultation by calling 720-459-HAIR. And to celebrate, the new year, get special financing, 250 free hair grafts, and $250 off. Value the things you can control and start regrowing your own natural hair today. I saw a great ad from Advanced Hair Restoration. They were talking about Matthew McConaughey. They were talking about Elon Musk, how they all had thinning hair, and now they've got these great heads of hair. Well, it's because they got work done like what you can get done at Advanced Hair. So become inspired with the before and after pictures at advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. Let's go to the phones. Lynn Evergreen. Good morning, Lynn. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Jeff and Billy. Okay, I believe what we're talking about is called habeas corpus, where the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, can implement military action to quell, uprisings.
It's the Insurrection Act.
Yes, otherwise known as habeas corpus, which you just named all of the presidents who have implemented that in the past for good reason. But you know what? We watched all of that, demonstrations, the destruction, all of that. And, the government just stepped back and said, okay, it's better to do nothing than to do something.
Yeah, that's where I think he's motivated by. I think he gets frustrated when he sees these cities getting burned up and riots taking place and those types of things. And he wants to respond in strength. I don't think he's going to use this against his political opponents. I don't think he's going to use them as a personal army. I think he's motivated to keep the peace, and he gets frustrated when he sees destruction.
You're right. And didn't we all, most of us, 99% of us, the mandate of President Trump now is get the country under control. This has got to stop. It's got to stop.
Now, Lynn, in your mind, what did you think? What would you have wanted the military to do? And I'm assuming you're talking about the Black Lives Matter riots.
Well,
what would you have wanted them to do?
That was in the past.
Then what riots are we talking about that you're worried about the destruction and things? What are you talking about? I'm just wondering your reference.
Look what happened in Denver. Look what happened in Chicago.
When? What's the time frame? Because if you're talking about isn't that BLM?
It was during the BLM.
Okay, so it is BLM. Okay, so so what would you want to see the military do during that time?
At least show a presence.
And do what?
Do what? I don't know.
And here's the reason why I asked that, Lynn. This is why I want to explore this. Is one, I want to know what's that level of when we have to get the military involved. How are we going to determine that? But more importantly, let's pick up the military and let's talk about the southern border. I hear from a lot of people, what we need to do? We need to put the military along the southern border. That'll teach them. What and now? What do we? Hang on. What do we expect the military? And this is just for hypotheticals. And what do we expect the military to do with the border? The military can't shoot people coming across the border. That's extrajudicial. Trying to cross into this country is not capital offense. You don't get to kill someone or injure them because they're trying to cross the border.
I'm not talking about killing people.
I know that you're not.
I'm just saying,
Lynn, I know that you aren't. I know you
aren't. Send in the troops and show a presence to quell the anger, quell the uprising.
Lynn, what I'm telling you, though, is as soon as those people at the border on the other side realize the guys with the guns can't shoot them, how effective are those guys with guns standing there? And I say, if we're talking about Black Lives Matter, if we want to put troops on the city grounds and the troops are going to do X, Y, and Z, but the one thing they can't do is enforce that with force, and that would mean both deadly and lethal force, they don't have a purpose. Because
Let
as soon
me-
as that
let me
riot,
say
as soon as
this
that
again.
riot, as
At
soon as that
least-
riot knows they're not going to be shot,
At least
what purpose do they
show
have?
a presence. At least show a presence. Send 30,000 troops down there to build, a human wall to say, no, you're not going to pass here, and you're not going to destroy. You're not going to destroy our cities. At least show a presence of somebody, standing there to say no and hell no.
Now,
Not here.
Okay, hang on a sec. Now, are our military troops trained in riot type of situations? Is that something they go through basic? Is that something they regularly train on? Is that something they are qualified for or have been instructed for?
Well, yeah.
No, they
because-
haven't. No, Lynn, they haven't. They don't go through riot training. They don't go through any of that. That is the local police force. That's who gets the riot training. The military, to my understanding, does not get that level of riot training because that's not what the military is trained to do. The military is not training to go down there and stop riots. The military is training to kill people and break things. That's what they're good at.
It's sort of like, Jeff, it's sort of like overseas wars. Having the U.S. present in certain areas, to keep back the terrorists, and kind of set up a border that says, no, you can't cross here and don't come in here. Just the presence itself of multiple, thousands of troops to say, nope, you're not getting past here.
Yeah, and Lynn, I think to your point, it sends a message. So, for instance, when Eisenhower put on fixed bayonets and sent troops down to the South to desegregate the South, they didn't have to engage in direct gunfire. They didn't have to stab people, but it sends a very, very powerful message that the U.S. government is not going to tolerate these types of activities. And,
and boom,
you need to back it down a little bit.
And some people are going to get hurt. I mean, the ones that are very bold and says, no, you can't tell me what to do. Some people are going to get hurt. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But just to be there to say, no, not here, go away.
Lynn, I appreciate the call.
Yeah,
thanks so
Lynn.
much.
Appreciate
Lynn's
that.
line is open, 303-696-1971. Do you support Donald Trump using troops to implement mass deportations, to quell riots, to protect the border? Are you all for that? Or are you concerned Donald Trump's going to utilize troops as his own private army, possibly even go after political opponents? And is it right? Join the conversation. Phone lines open, 303-696-1971. Text lines available, coming right in here to the studio, 720-819-5115. Holy cow, this text message is blowing up.
Oh,
Gabe
yeah, a lot of
saying
them.
the military should not be used against American civilians. Do you trust your government? Ever?
That's an interesting point. All these people that are all running around, deep state, all this stuff about how the government's working against you, and including all the super woke military. But now they're the vanguard of freedom and defending the country. When just a couple of weeks ago, they were these weak, horribly prepared, untrained people that are so worried about climate change and DEI rather than doing the actual military job. But now they're the vanguard of truth and freedom and protecting the flag because we like what they're going to be doing. Are they still those woke, DEI, corrupted minds? Because we've been told that our military is at the worst position it's ever been. It's been so eroded, is what Donald Trump's told us. But now it's at a position that it can help with mass deportations and quell riots in America. We probably need to decide what situation our military is in before we decide what our military has the ability to do.
Great question. 0841 text in as well. The National Guard's been called into the LA fires to ward off looting.
Yeah.
How is that any different than Trump using the military against rioting and violence anywhere else? Good question. We'll get to all this and more. Join the conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Interesting piece in Politico over the weekend about the Insurrection Act. What could Donald Trump do? How is he going to use troops? How have they been used in the past? George H.W. Bush using them in the 90s to quell riots in Los Angeles.
I got a bit of a question.
Do you think he's going to use them as a personal army, as Bill does? Yeah, what's your question?
I do. Now, when we were talking earlier, you talked about how that Donald Trump wants to stop the destruction and he wants to, hold the rioters accountable and he wants to, push in order. And then how does that jive with him wanting to pardon the January 6th rioters? Because there's a little bit of a question that happened over the weekend as far as how many of them were going to be pardoned. Vice President J.D. Vance said they were going to look at it, and he took the position that you did about those that were nonviolent, which, while I may disagree with, does seem reasonable. However, the pushback that was on social media was, hang on, it needs to be all of them. Inside of MAGA, I'm hearing it has to be all of them. So how do I square the circle of the idea that Donald Trump will use the troops in order to enforce order, in order to stop riots, except these people, the riot they did, the police officers they beat, the building they broke into, that one's okay. That one's a free pass. But the others,
question,
how do we deal with that?
The question within the MAGA movement about pardoning all of them has to do with whether or not we believe they got a fair trial originally. Now, I do think that if you have people that were directly assaulting police officers and maximizing destruction, really breaking things, I'm with JD Vance on this. And I think it to your point, Bill, it makes a compelling argument that, look, if you're going to hold BLM rioters accountable for their destruction, you're willing to use troops to keep the peace, and these small businesses that were destroyed in these state capitals. I mean, the Colorado state capitol was shot at, and we still have no idea who did that. Then you need to hold the people that destroyed the U.S. Capitol and directly assaulted police accountable. But I do think there's a fair argument that comes from the MAGA community that not everybody got a fair trial because this stuff was so politically motivated, took place in Washington, D.C., and you're not going to have a jury of your peers, all that stuff. That's a fair critique. But if you had people directly engaging in violence, I'm not sure they should have been punished or pardoned. And you can maybe have a fair critique as to whether or not they're being punished fairly and all that as well.
And so, that's why I am at least I'm willing to look at the idea of individuals that maybe it was only trespassing to go ahead and pardon them, simply because there were a number of people that I believe inside of the BLM riots we probably could nail for the same type of trespassing behavior, and yet they weren't charged. So I do believe
violent behavior.
Yeah, I do believe. The thing is, I think that from what I was looking at, I think that most of the violent behavior has been charged. They've charged more than 15,000 people. So I think most of the violent behavior that we can lead to. The problem with the shooting at the Capitol is you can fire a gun from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet away. Figuring out who that is different than someone that is doing it necessarily on camera. So the investigation into that is much more difficult and problematic. So I don't hold that as the bar. But I do think that's why maybe I can get to the idea that the nonviolent, the trespass only, okay, because of some of the things that I disagree with, some of the people with BLM being let off, okay, I can get there then. I'm not super happy about either one of them. But okay, if that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to do.
I think that's where most people are, is they go, look, if you're violent, if you're destructive, they want accountability towards it. People have suffered those types of things. If you're just, in the wrong place at the wrong time or got caught up and walked over into a place, bringing the weight of the federal government down on you is probably not fair. Let's go to the phone lines. Bruce. Good morning, Bruce. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, Jeff. Just wanted to weigh in. Heard you guys talking about, possible military missions on the border. And I have some time as an Army Reserve chaplain. I'm retired now, so I think I can speak kind of forthrightly. One of my jobs with the Army was being a chaplain for units on the Homeland Defense mission. So one thing I heard you guys talking about how, the role of the military is to kill people and break things, but mission sets for the military have gotten a lot more complex, especially since 9/11. I don't have an opinion whether the military is right to mobilize on the border or not. I don't have a dog in that fight. I don't really care whether it happens or not, but there are some mission sets that military could contribute to. A couple of things that our military people are trained in is stability operations and civil support. And so
can you outline that for our listeners as far as when they hear that? What do they visualize that? What does that mean?
Well, the Army has a lot of resources that could augment civil capacity. For example, field hospitals. For example, there's a huge arm of military police. Military police are actually trained to do law enforcement for military people, and so they can support civilian police as well. They can integrate with civilian police. Engineers, they have bulldozers, they have carpenters, they have electricians, so your engineers could build facilities.
Yeah, see, Bruce, I think you're really smart there that when I look at the border and when I look at the assistance for mass deportations on our military, I believe the best role for the military is construction transportation. They can do things like, they can build the places that we're going to house the people before we deport them. They can provide the security in the places that we're going to house them before we deport them. And then they also can be in charge of moving the people once we do deport them. I think the military would be aces at those type of roles. I'm worried more about it being a more kinetic or more combative role.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's incredible capacity now for humanitarian work. It's a humanitarian disaster on the border if you think about the minors that are coming in and being trafficked, and then the attracting people that you really can't handle. And so the humanitarian capacity that the military has is pretty robust. The big issue would be funding and whether the emergency situation merits that use of money or not. But it could be for a temporary purpose to create stability. There could be a valid purpose there. And I agree, Bill, the support and sustainment role of the humanitarian capacity. Another piece that the military brings is surveillance capacity. A lot of remote sensing, the ability to fly drones, the ability to provide
Bruce,
intelligence.
I got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bill said that Donald Trump may want to use the military as his own personal army.
Yeah, it's my feeling. It's not. I'm not saying for sure. I'm not saying I have any basis in fact. This is my feelings, and do with them as you wish.
What do you think? Do you think the military could be used as Donald Trump's personal army?
That sounds to me like a conspiracy theory on the left. I give that about as much credibility as the flat earthers.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
How would the military? So let's say Donald Trump was like, I'm going to send troops to go to Kamala Harris's house and arrest her. Could he do that? Would they abide by that?
No, that's pretty laughable on its face.
But Bruce, hasn't Donald Trump said that he wants people like Liz Cheney to face military tribunals? He said he wants Liz to face a military tribunal and to have it televised. He's also talked about former members of his staff should be shot for treason. Isn't that getting closer to where we are?
You need to understand this, Bill, about Donald Trump. You're being played. I mean, Donald Trump says a lot of things in order to get earned media.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is the expert at how to get earned media, and earned media is basically how he won the presidency. He goes out and he trolls people in order to get earned media, and so he gets his name out there more common than anybody else. And bad publicity is better than no publicity. The guy's brilliant at tooling people,
but
you've just fallen for being
Bruce, I want to ask you about how the military would respond to something like that. You've worked in the military. An order came down, arrest Liz Cheney and we're going to host a military tribunal. Would they follow that order?
Well, first of all, there's no way that's going to get handed down.
Why not?
Because, well, first of all, the Posse Comitatus Act. you can't have the military operate in a civilian role, as a police force in the country without there being a national emergency, and you would have to have the declaration of a national emergency, and that's never going to happen to go out and arrest your political enemies.
If we control the House and the Senate, couldn't we get there? Especially if we view this Liz Cheney as being part of the deep state. That's what's sold about her, is she was part of the deep state, and the January 6th committee, and she was doing it only politically in order to get Trump. That this was all part of the DOJ and Biden crime family. That's what's being sold on that side. Couldn't we sell it that way?
No, you can't sell it that way. That's ridiculous.
Now, the other part is, I understand when
no
you sat there,
elected official is going to go along with that.
I'm not so certain about that. And I understand what you're saying, Bruce, about the idea that you think that I've been trolled and I've fallen for it. But what I'm also hearing from you when you say that people listen to what Donald Trump says and then try to hold him accountable for it is we just need to acknowledge that Donald Trump is mostly full of crap. That what he's going to come out and tell us to do and what he's going to say he's going to do, we should ignore. That we should understand that he is largely going to say stuff that's not true. Okay.
Bill, what you need to understand about Donald Trump is you need to watch what he does and not listen to what he says. He's brilliant. He's like an illusionist. He does with one hand, gets you looking at this one hand while he's doing something else with the other hand.
Then Bruce, why did most of Donald Trump's supporters say it was because of what he's going to do with the economy and what he's going to do with immigration? If we're not going to believe him about mass deportations, again, you said we shouldn't believe what he tells us. If we shouldn't believe him about being able to lower energy costs by 50%, lowering costs of the grocery store, lowering costs of housing, lowering mortgage rates, he said all of those things would happen. And now, because he says them, we should just watch what he does. We shouldn't believe the stuff that he tells us he's going to do. That's your premise, correct?
No, my premise is watch what he does. What did he do in his first 4 years in office? Watch, you watch what he does, and what he did was he had a pretty thriving economy. What he did was, he tried to secure the border.
Yeah, but
so we know he's going to work real hard to secure the border.
Yeah, but he also said that Mexico is going to pay for it, and we didn't get a free wall. And if we look at the fundamentals of the economy, they are just as strong, if not stronger, in some areas under Joe Biden. And that's a difficult thing to say, is that Donald Trump had the economy humming. He tells us it was the greatest economy ever in the world, and that's not true. And so I have this problem of people that are Trump supporters calling in and saying, no, you can't listen to what he says. What he says is BS, but I'm going to pick and choose the stuff that I like that he says, and that's the stuff I'm going to believe he's going to do.
Bruce, I sure appreciate the call. That was a lot of fun and a good debate with you and Billy. And his experience in the military, I think, provided a lot of background. And I think that's what I was trying to get to, is like, even if Donald Trump said, no, go after Liz Cheney, grab SEAL Team 6.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the military would follow that order, but I also don't think he's going to.
But also, according to the Supreme Court, he wouldn't be held responsible for those actions. Those would be, if he says that it is in danger, that Liz Cheney's endangering the country, then technically it wouldn't be a crime because he's doing it based on the previous ruling. And I really appreciate Bruce's phone call, and I appreciate what he's done, and I didn't get a chance to tell him, and I should have, for him being a military chaplain, because I know that those people that are military chaplains are there to support some of our military members in some of their worst times. They're helping them with mental support, religious and otherwise, because a lot of times they're going to sit down, and people that aren't necessarily religious are going to come and talk to the chaplain, and the chaplain has to navigate that and navigate a whole bunch of different flavors of religion. They, to me, are one of the unsung heroes inside of our military, because they, in many ways, help the team move forward and deal with some of the worst things they can imagine. So I appreciate
exactly
you, Bruce.
right. Thank you to Bruce for the call.
Yes,
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Lots of text messages on this discussion. A big political article over the weekend about Donald Trump, use of troops. What can we expect of them? How were they used in the past? How were they used during the riots? Are they trained enough if they're going to be used to quell riots? Should they go to the border? How are they going to be used during mass deportations? Incredible conversations. Jason in Denver texting in, Trump doesn't need the military regarding Liz Cheney. He's now in charge of the FBI and the CIA. They both have special technical units that rival the military he can use. So don't forget about that. Liz Cheney's going to have a knock on the door from the CIA and the FBI.
Yeah. And I love the idea that, we can't have, Biden going after his political opponents, but we can arrest Liz Cheney. Interesting.
Wow, man, the conversation will continue. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, January 13th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You're heading to work at the greatest country in history. Let's get after it. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Jackie Smith, here you go. Jack Smith resigning late last week. No longer with the Department of Justice and Special Counsel, but now he's turned in his reports. And we're waiting to hear what's in them. There's a back and forth as to whether or not they're going to be released. But at any moment, we could be hearing those, because there's a 3-day delay. The reports were submitted on Friday. So at any moment we could hear, was this just a big waste of time? $50 million spent on these two cases, coordinated by Jack Smith to go after Trump on January 20th in the classified documents case. And at the end, Donald Trump isn't going to be prosecuted because there's a standing policy within the Department of Justice. You don't prosecute a sitting president, but there are other people that could be prosecuted, particularly around the documents case. 2 longtime staffers of Donald Trump could be prosecuted over this stuff, but $50 million spent on this, a giant waste of time or a righteous prosecution? Love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff and Billy. It's 19 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 36 today with the sunshine. So wintertime, that'll feel like, about 49 degrees, 50 degrees. So that's
enjoy it, because it is that cold polar air is coming.
No doubt, man. But man, if you can get some sunshine and blue sky, I am blessed. I feel blessed every time I see that in January. Our top story: 16th Street businesses and citizens on edge after police arrested a suspect last night and say he's connected to weekend stabbings that left 2 dead and 2 injured in downtown Denver Saturday night. His identity will be released today, hopefully. An American Airlines flight attendant has been identified as one of the victims. The Phoenix-based flight attendant, Celinda Levno, was the victim of a senseless crime, said American Airlines. A friend of the flight attendant told Denver 7 that she was stabbed to death while walking along 16th Street Mall Saturday night.
The Denver police chief is now telling visitors to Denver to be vigilant.
Right. Saw that.
I can't,
great.
So
man, what a great city.
You know and I've said this before, the woman in a fur coat with pearls theory.
Yeah.
With regards to governing a city. You as the mayor have to be so deeply committed to the safety of your city that a woman in a fur coat with pearls can walk around, because you get half of the revenue into the city of Denver from sales tax, which means if people don't come and they ain't buying anything, they're not going to Rockies games, or they're not going to Nuggets games or the theater or out to eat, because you're going to get stabbed. Then you're not going to get revenue for your city. You can't do all the little progressive, little lefty things you want to spend your money on. You can't do it. You have a motivation to make the city so safe that a woman with fur coats and pearls and diamond rings can freely walk from dinner to the theater. And you had people stabbed by this lunatic over the weekend,
and bringing your family downtown.
Yes,
I mean,
because
family, you want to bring your kids down to that.
This is an actual law of physics that criminals and families will not occupy the same space, right? Because if you allow criminals to run around and stab people, then families are not going to show up. And if you're so tough on criminals that families feel safe going down there, you're not going to have criminals there. This
That's
is
right.
not rocket science, but
No,
you have
it isn't.
a totally inept mayor that would rather ride in parades and go watch Broncos games than actually keeping his own city safe.
Yep. That's your job. Go do it. But it's epidemic across the country. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested for a deadly shooting that happened in Aurora last week. A man was shot outside his home on East 62nd Drive on Thursday night. Investigators say the man saw a suspicious car near his home just before the shooting. Police identified the car and conducted a traffic stop on Friday, arresting the teen suspect on an outstanding warrant. He is now facing a charge of first-degree murder in connection with the man's death. 2 juveniles arrested Sunday in connection to an armed robbery at a 7-Eleven on South Buckley. The clerk told officers that 2 armed male suspects entered the store, robbed them, and then left in a black sedan. Police were in a short pursuit with the 2 before they stopped and then bailed from the car, but then arrested, play stupid games, and win stupid prizes. 23,000 acres burned, 24 people dead, the worst in LA history. The Palisades fire raising red flags, not only about incompetence of Democrats, but also allowing it to happen. Was this by design? There are numerous videos and proof that the arsonists were out there in full force. The reservoir emptied, designed to provide the water for fires in the Palisades. California Governor Gavin Newsom, who never sweats, ever, doesn't matter what is coming out of his pie hole.
A Marshall Plan. We already have a team of looking and reimagining LA 2.0, and we're making sure everyone's included, not just the folks on the coast, people here that were ravaged by this disaster.
You just said you're organizing a Marshall Plan for the rebuilding of California. What is that Marshall Plan?
For
Tell
this
us about this
region,
Marshall
we're just
Plan.
starting to lay out. I mean, we're still fighting these fires. So we're already talking to city leaders. We're already talking to civic leaders. We're already talking to business leaders and nonprofits. We're talking to labor leaders. We're starting to organize how we can put together a collection of individuals on philanthropy for recovery, how we can organize the region, how we can make sure that we are seeking federal assistance for the Olympics more broadly, but also federal assistance for the recovery efforts, and how we can galvanize the community with folks that love this community to really develop a mindset so that at scale, we're dealing with the scope of this tragedy and responding to it at scale with efficiency, like the executive order I talked about, time value of delivering projects, addressing building codes, addressing permitting issues, and moving forward to rebuilding and being more resilient.
George Soros and Klaus Schwab are proud of their boy, Greasy Gavin. The Senate opens confirmation hearings this week for some of DJT's cabinet picks. One of the most controversial picks is Fox News host and veteran Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary John Barrasso from Wyoming.
Well, he certainly has the qualities that we need to lead the Pentagon. He knows about a fit fighting force. He is very qualified, in my opinion. He has a distinguished record of service in the military. Every senator gets to speak for themselves, and they will do that. The meetings have gone very well. Things are heading in the right direction. The hearings start Tuesday, and they're going to be consequential. People will listen and make their own decision. People have already had chances to ask questions, and they're going to continue to do so. I expect he's going to have quality answers to the questions that they ask.
J.D. Vance becomes VP in 7 days. Sleazy Joe continues to boast about his 4 years.
Fact is, he has left us dumpster fire, not just at the border, but also with the economy. First of all, we know that prices are way too high for many Americans. We have to work every single day to stabilize prices for American families. But Shannon, everything that he's bragging about ignores the fact that he has added trillions and trillions of dollars to the federal debt during a time of peace. He has left us with bond yields, meaning how are we going to finance that debt? We have to sell treasury bonds.
Playoffs.
Big play here. Trying to go up top for it.
He wants to run for it, Jim. He wants to just go get it with his legs. He's trying to find
It wasn't
opening.
there, so now he's got to throw it deep to the end zone. And was that caught? Yes! Ty Johnson scrapes it off the ground, above the ground for the touchdown.
He wants to run for it, Jim. He wants to use legs. He wants to look. Wait, Tony. Just wait till after the call. Thank you. Broncos fall to the Bills Sunday in the wild card round of the playoffs, 31-7 final. Head coach Sean Payton.
The things we felt we needed to do on the road to win, we didn't do nearly well enough. Time of possession was heavily tilted in their favor.
Bo Nix, 13 of 22, 144 yards and a touchdown. They finished the season 10 wins, 7 losses. Things look they look encouraging for the Broncos in the future. 16 in Parker, 17 in Lakewood, 19 in Denver. It's Monday. Stop, drop, and roll. Jeff and Billy continue.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Yeah, you tell him, girl. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Fair weather to start the week here in Denver. Just a little chilly. Temperatures are going to be in the 30s today and tomorrow. Might make the 40s Wednesday. The warmest day of the week will be Thursday. We're going to see generally fair, dry conditions. Nights in the teens and lower 20s. Increasingly cloudy Friday, turning cooler late. Then it's going to be much, much colder by Friday night and the weekend with a chance of light snow. An Arctic front will be paying Colorado and the Front Range a visit by the weekend. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill. We've got some breaking news. His name hasn't been confirmed, so I'm not going to say it. I haven't seen other news outlets, but court documents show that the guy that was responsible for the stabbing and killing of a flight attendant, injuring of others, has a lengthy criminal history, including sexual assault, failure to appear in criminal mischief, and was out on a $0 bond for sexual assault in February of 24.
Well, that's a surprise. Not that, that someone that chooses this type of random violence has a history of criminal behavior.
Violence.
Yeah. Not a surprise. Gosh. Not a surprise.
We'll continue
and the
to
other
follow
stuff I want to
that
say right now, I'm
news.
going to keep for mine because that's for a different discussion. I don't want to derail everything we're going to do right now because, oh boy, could we. But no, we're going to do that. That's for a different day. We will be able to talk about this this horrible person later on, and that's when I will cause the chaos and light things on fire. But that's for a different day.
Speaking of chaos and lighting on fire, Billy, the text messages are blowing up today.
Are they ever?
5600 saying, Billy, you're always wrong. It's the job of the military to protect the United States of America. We, the people, from all enemies, foreign and domestic. America's greatest enemy is domestic. The anti-American enemy has infiltrated every institution of the USA and is largely responsible for indoctrinating people like you, Bill. This deep state enemy must be exposed and then eradicated. The military should be used to neutralize them. Yikes. And deport the millions of illegal immigrants that they allowed into the U.S. The President of the United States is the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, and they pledge to obey him. Neutralize.
I can see that because, and I understand why the texter feels that way, because it has been successful in other regimes. Let's see what comes to mind. Iraq comes to mind. Iran comes to mind. It's incredibly effective in Russia. Russia, incredibly effective there, using the military to purge thought and purity of party. Let's see. China, also really good at that. Oh, and North Korea. North Korea does a great job using their military to purge the members of the government that don't follow the approved or appropriate line of thinking. Perhaps the texter will also suggest re-education camps for folks like myself, etc. Since we're going that direction.
I think they would love to send you there.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. The issue being is that I love the fact that
you would perform so well in those.
The thing for me is what I love is that in order to protect the freedom and liberty of America, We must turn America into what we hate in order to save it. I find that logic fascinating. And I
Can we
appreciate the
just
text
take
message.
a moment to wonder what Bill and Arena
Oh yeah,
camp would be
I
like?
would be a lot of fun. I probably would not leave there with all of my appendages still intact. They would take some from me, I am certain. And you go all in your own little minds, decide which ones you want them to take first.
Phones are starting to light up. All right, let's talk about this special counsel, Jack Smith. He gone. Here's the background on it. Washington Post put together a big kind of review, help you understand what the fights still are and what's coming up here. Under the Justice Department regulations, special counsels must submit a final report to the Attorney General at the conclusion of their investigation, detailing the findings and the decision-making process. The Attorney General gives the report to Congress and decides if it should be made public. Of course, you know these yahoos want it to be public. So what's the fight all about? Well, when Trump won the November election, Smith wound down his 2 federal cases against him, citing Justice Department regulations prohibiting the prosecution of a sitting president. In the D.C. case, in which Trump is charged with attempting to undo the 2020 election results, the judge dismissed the indictment at Smith's request. Judge Eileen Cannon has already dismissed the Florida classified documents case against Trump and his 2 co-defendants, ruling last July that it was invalid because Smith was unlawfully appointed. The Justice Department is appealing the ruling. So he's appealing in that, dropping Trump as a party, but keeping his co-defendants, longtime Trump employees, on the docket. Before resigning Friday, Smith submitted a 2-volume report to Attorney General Merrick Garland, who, just loves Republicans, and I'm sure will absolutely keep this report private. 1 volume in each case. Trump's legal team is trying to get the courts to block its public release, questioning Smith's legitimacy and saying making the report public would impede Trump's transition to the presidency. So what happened last week? This is where it gets a little confusing. Since Trump is no longer a party to either case, it fell to the 2 employees to ask Eileen Cannon to block the report's release. They said the Florida portion of the report could unfairly prejudice a jury against them. If Cannon's decision to toss the case is overturned, they end up facing a trial. But they also argued that the entire report should be withheld, including the volume on the election interference case. The filing to Cannon included a letter Trump's attorney sent to Garland urging him not to release the report. Here's how the courts have ruled so far. Cannon, Judge Eileen Cannon, essentially punted the substance of the decision to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. She told the Justice Department not to release any part of the report until at least 3 days after a ruling on the matter by the appeals court, which also got a request from the 2 employees of Donald Trump to keep it under wraps. This same appeals court, weighing the Justice Department's challenge to Cannon's ruling that Smith was unlawfully appointed. On Thursday night, the appeals court said the U.S. Department could release the report, but the judges said if the government wanted to avoid Cannon's 3-day rule, it would have to separately appeal that part of the decision. The Justice Department quickly did so, but the appeals court has not yet ruled. The lawyers for the 2 employees, meanwhile, have asked Cannon to extend her 3-day ban on releasing the report Saturday evening. Cannon told the Justice Department to respond by Sunday morning to some of the specifics of the 2 employees' case that they have raised. So when we might see the report? If the 11th Circuit doesn't weigh in, the election interference part of the report could be released at any moment. It's possible that Trump seeks other legal avenues, such as Supreme Court and others, to further the the delay. So right now, bottom line with all of that, could be any moment to see those cases. Bill, from your perspective, $50 million well spent?
No, because there is not going to be any case at the end of the road, because Donald Trump won. He's going to make everything go away. And I believe that Eileen Cannon is running interference for him right now and trying to delay it. so that the appeals court will become moot, because once he gets into power, he can just refuse to release it. And this
to
is
run enough delay to get for a week to the 20th.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I believe that's the game. I believe that was the game why she challenged whether or not Jack Smith could be appointed in the first place, because that had already been adjudicated by the courts in other situations, that wasn't really an issue. Don't know why the appellate court hasn't taken it up yet, but that's okay. That's what is happening. And so, yeah, she's trying to interference, and then he will just try to make it go away. So, no, I don't think it was 50 million well spent. I have an issue as far as how late they got running on this one. And also some of the politicization that has happened on both sides inside of the case. But I do think, and the one that is, I think, problematic mostly for me is the classified documents case, because we have people that are in prison currently for doing much the same thing. But with him, he gets a pass because, of course, it's Biden
because he's the president.
Persecuting him. He wasn't when he had the documents. When he went to Mar-a-Lago, he's no longer the president. He's not allowed to have those.
But he deemed them unclassified.
No, he didn't. We have no proof of that.
But he said so.
No, it doesn't matter what he says so afterwards. We have no proof that during when he was in office that those things were declassified. And the reason we have no proof of that is because there's a process. He can't just say they're declassified. Oh, wait, now they're classified now. Now they're declassified. There's a process that the paperwork has to go through.
It's not a legal process, though. It's not by law. It's not written by Congress that you have to follow this process.
I'm not so certain about that.
I think it's guidelines. I think it's more rulemaking.
I'm not so certain about that, because if there is no process, then couldn't I just release any classified information I wanted to?
Well, that's what he's saying.
I know that seems really crazy, because there is a process that has to be followed in order to make sure those documents are released. And if they are unclassified, then why doesn't he release them and let us see all of them? Does that mean that you and I can FOIA those documents and see them? Some of which were military plans and nuclear codes. Can we FOIA them? If he declassified all of them, can we though? No, but I'm just curious. Can we? That would be the question.
Well, I don't know,
if he says they're declassified, then you and I have every right as American citizens to be able to view them. And I want to know, some of those were capabilities of nuclear submarines.
I'm not sure it jumps that far. So if it's declassified, ergo, anybody can FOIA them.
Yeah,
but here's the challenge I have with these is, okay, well, then who else is the person in the federal government that gets to determine whether or not our most secret, influential, powerful documents are available to the public? If it's not the president, if it's some bureaucrat somewhere in the government that we have said, all right, you're the person who believes that the president has followed all of these rules necessary to declassify them, then is that person de facto more powerful than the president when it comes to declassifying documents? And I don't like a government that's set up that way. But I think that the president is the final decision maker on these.
But he would have to go through the process. And that's where I keep coming back to. We have no indication that he ever started the process. It's just like if he decides to fire nuclear weapons, he doesn't get to go over and push the big giant red button and unlock the briefcase. There is a process that is involved in there, just like there is a process for declassifying documents. And we have zero indication he ever went through that process or even started it. And that's a real question, because if he did really, and this is why it's very important. If it's ideas, oh, well, he declassified them and then it doesn't matter. We go back to, yes, if he declassifies them, we have the right to see them. Yes, we do. And so then we'd be able to FOIA them. So he either has to say that all the stuff that he has, we now can see publicly and should be released, or it wasn't declassified. The choice has to be made one way or the other. And yet he's never said he will release those documents, nor could they be FOIA'd or anything else. He just uses the, I declassified it as an excuse. He's using it as an excuse. Yeah.
Want to hear from you all with regards to these Jack Smith cases. Are you glad he's gone? Was it a waste of $50 million? Was it a righteous prosecution? Is Donald Trump wrong on the classified case? Or do you agree with me on the perspective that, hey, he's the ultimate decision maker? And these were guidelines with regards to declassification. There's no set rule, from my understanding, that you have to follow this in order for it to be determined. And if that's the case, is there somebody else within the government that gets to determine this? That's an unelected bureaucrat. I don't like. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. And then also, I'll throw this out there. Are we moving past the age of lawfare? All 4 cases against Donald Trump at the end of the day didn't stop him from becoming president. Only in one was he prosecuted. And in that case, they didn't even punish him. So were all 4 of these just a giant waste of time, energy, and were they politically motivated? Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115.
Now, Jeff,
Well, Bill and I are debating this. There's
Yeah.
something we don't debate.
Yeah, something we don't debate. It's about living your life in pain. Well, Jeff and I don't agree on many things. We do agree that you shouldn't have to get out of bed in the morning and just wonder how much it's going to hurt. Listen, I've been there. Been just like you. We're just curious about how much is this going to hurt each and every day. And I've got some friends that can help you out. Balance Well Space. I thought as I got older, things were just going to hurt. That was natural. That was part of the aging process. That's what I observed in the older people in my life growing up. So when things started to ache, when I started doing things, going on walks and hikes, when I started not being able to lift things like I used to, and being worried about how long I can be down on the ground pulling weeds and what my back was going to feel like the next day, I started changing my life and how I lived until I met the team at Balance Well Space. They introduced me to something called integrative medicine, and they took away my daily pain. I used to be in a level of like 4 to 10 on a daily basis. Now I'm at a 0 out of almost every single day in the past like 6 months. It is crazy. Integrative medicine means you get a whole bunch of different techniques and treatments under one roof. They can take care of chiropractic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, neuropathic care, and so much more, plus some amazing cutting edge technology. And it's all under one roof. The cool thing is that's one stop. You go and you visit Balance Well Space. They do a personal pain evaluation. They figure out what hurts. They take the pictures. They do the x-rays. And they ask you about stuff that you're not doing anymore. Because this is about goal setting. What do you want to get back to doing? Then they go to work. And the cool thing is every couple of months, they come back and and not every couple of months, every couple of weeks. It's a 3-week cycle. Every 3 weeks, they come back in and they check in. They make sure you're still advancing. They talk to you about what treatments are working really well. And then they take a look and see what's not working as well. And they go ahead and they tweak it based on that. You've got a group of medical professionals handling your pain right now, but when's the last time they talked about you? When's the last time they had a meeting about you? Exchange emails, text messages, Zooms, carrier pigeons, something talking about how all their care is working together? They haven't. And that's part of why you are seeing those plateaus and not advancing to the places where you need to be, because everything isn't working together. That's the difference in Balance Well Space. Integrative medicine. They've got brand new offices right across from Hangar 2 in Lowry, plenty of parking, and they're great people. Go see Dr. Jess, Dr. Julie, everybody else be on the medical team and talk to them about how they can take away your daily pain. I put a bed together for my youngest daughter this weekend. Guess what's not hurting this morning after I'm bending over the entire time? My back, my knee. I'm screwing things in upside down, you know, when the blood's rushing to your head and stuff. Guess what? My hamstrings, they're a little sore today. Yes, that's stupid because of bending upside down. But it's my hamstrings, not my back, not my knee, not my bum right shoulder. The stuff that used to give me pain for days after doing something like that. I feel great. And it's all thanks to the group at Balance Well Space. Let them make the same change in your life they have made in mine, but you've got to take the first step and contact them. BalanceWellSpace.com. BalanceWellSpace.com. Reach out to them today, and when you do, tell me you heard about him here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because it sure does help us out as well. Thanks.
That's great to hear, Bill. We'll continue. Phone calls starting to come in. Louise from Aurora texting before anything happens to Trump on classified documents. What about Hillary and Joe? Ooh, boy.
Ooh, call in about
the
that.
Conversation.
Because they're not the same. Call in. Because they're not the same.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Jack Smith, the Trump documents, January 20th cases, the reports still out there. Not sure if they're going to be released. They could be released at any moment. There's legal battles taking place over this. Jack Smith has resigned his role. No surprise there. Donald Trump is going to fire him in a week anyways. What do you think of all of this? We spent $50 million as a country on this. Did we get anywhere? Was it worth it? Was justice served? Let's go to the phone lines. Who do we got from Sterling? Jim, sorry. No,
that's my fault.
Jim, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
How you doing?
Good. How are you, Jim? What's on your mind about the classified documents case and Jack Smith and the election interference case? Do you think that $50 million for Jack Smith was well spent? Why or why not?
It's hard to see where all their stuff goes because they get so tied up and all that. I have no idea of where they structured it all. And that's what confuses all of us to where it's like they're hiding something from somebody and somebody's now we're all going down different rabbit holes and we don't know which rabbit hole to even go down. These people, when they get to playing games like this, it creates a radio show, obviously,
Yeah, which we're grateful for.
Yeah, well, I had to try to make funny out of something
Appreciate
that's really not. I mean, who are these people to tell us how we should live our lives? You got a fence around your house?
I do.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, for us, it's to keep animals from running out and bad animals from coming in.
Yeah. And it's to make sure my dog doesn't bite the people in the neighborhood because she
Okay,
is a
you
really
just said it
good
exactly right.
guard dog.
Keep animals from going out and keep animals from coming in. You summed it up. It's that simple. Nicely done.
Is that simple? Are you referring to our border wall?
Correct.
Yeah. The thing though is that I've got squirrels.
In the essence of that,
Yeah. The problem I have with that, Jim, is that I've got squirrels that climb right over the top of that wall. And assuming that two-legged, two-armed humans won't climb over the wall, I think is also. I mean, everyone made fun of Tim Walz talking about the idea that, hey, if you're going to build a 20-foot tall wall, I'm just going to, go invest in a 23-foot ladder company. I understand the funny there, but he has a point that if you're going to build the wall this tall, someone else is going to build a ladder taller.
Okay, what if we did just take? I want to know both of your comments on this stupid idea. It's a very stupid idea.
I'm good with stupid ideas. It's kind of my thing. Cool.
But as a farmer and a rancher, whatever. But anyways, what if we just laid out? We got drones. We got all kinds of technology now. Cameras don't stop on somebody. They catch somebody, but it doesn't. Is all you got is your picture. Well, what if we just had a pepper spray? Bam! So those officers and those cops could just sit there and pepper spray, and then bring fire trucks in with water. So pepper spray and water is not a bullet. Correct? Correct. So therefore, if we use just pressurized water to blow them off the wall, or if we use pepper spray, which is going to get on their skin, and then they're going to start itching, and they're going to start doing whatever they can't see, and then they're going to walk right back into the river. Pepper spray and pressured water. Now that is not a bullet.
Bill, what do you think of that?
That's nothing that will kill you. Hang on. That's nothing that will kill a person or a child.
There are a couple of things. Correct. The pepper spray, though, is limited by the weather.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is
who took the risk?
And no, but what I'm saying by the weather is this. If the wind is blowing from Mexico into the U.S. and you deploy pepper spray, you're going to spray yourself in the face.
You want to get into fine details.
Well, no.
Okay, well, we ain't going to do it 10, 12 hours a day. We'll wait
I know, but even then, if they were coming over and the weather is going the wrong direction, it doesn't necessarily hold. The other part being, I have questions about how you're going to mount water cannons, how you're going to make them mobile enough
you ever
or secure
seen a fire
enough.
truck?
I know.
Fire trucks have been around for quite a few years.
Yeah, but think about this. Let's say that you're somewhere that's like 300 yards away from a couple of people coming over the wall. How long is it going to take you to get that fire truck down there to deploy the hoses to connect to the water? Because the fire trucks don't care they're on water.
Have you ever seen? So we could do it this way. This is just another dumb thought. Here you go. Have you seen on the television? Maybe you have. Or how we fly a helicopter to put out a fire, and they drop anything that they want. They pick up, I can't remember how many gallons they carry. They could pick that up and fly right on the other side of whatever.
I think you would hurt somebody if you did that.
Could drop 100 miles of whatever you would like to put on there. 100 miles instantly in a small fume right down. That helicopter, next helicopter, I've been around the helicopter business. I've been around loggers. I mean, I knew a guy, he had 3 helicopters of his own. So I've flown a couple.
Yeah.
And anyways,
height is going to be your.
You watch those.
Height's going to be.
So what?
Yeah. Well, Jim, I appreciate the phone call. I appreciate the phone call, Jim, and give us a call back later this week. I appreciate the helicopter idea, but height and weather are going to be your problems there because the higher you put that helicopter in the air, the more the water is going to disperse as it comes down based on wind resistance and how water behaves in the air.
People crossing.
Well, the other is you're not pouring it out of a glass. If you're opening it, it's gonna turn into water droplets, and by the time, if you're several hundred feet up, by the time you get down to the ground,
knock you out.
Well, only if you're close enough. If you're high enough, it's going to disperse enough where it's just going to make you wet. Because if you think about when they're dropping the big things of water on the forest fires, they're not creating these huge water trenches through the middle of the forest. The reason it's dropped from that angle and that height is because it disperses into very heavy wet mist by the time it comes down, so that you can create a large enough coverage area, and you have to disperse the moisture. That's what would happen if you were too far up. If you're going to fly 50 feet above the people, you might get a shot at washing them off the wall. You go a little bit higher than that, so you get 100, 200 feet. The water is going to disperse because of the air resistance. They're going to form droplets because of how water behaves, and it's going to disperse and end up being a mist that falls on you. So you're just going to be damp. I'm not sure that's going to work. They'll get in the country, they'll just be moist, which is uncomfortable.
That was a moment
It's uncomfortable
with Jim.
I appreciate Jim, though. That was fun.
Ideas on how to
fun.
stop illegal immigration.
Yeah.
Helicopters and water disbursement.
Exactly. Why
Give
not?
you a guy with 3 helicopters.
I know. Yeah.
I'd like to know a guy with 3 helicopters.
Me too.
Give me a ride. Where you can.
Yeah, helicopter rides are a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. But going back to the Jack Smith thing is I think that both of us can agree, for different reasons though, but I think both of us can agree that it was not money well spent. We come to different conclusions as to why, but the bottom line is whether or not you feel that the possible prosecution of Donald Trump was justified or was not. The bottom line is we don't have resolution. So either way, we will have spent all of this money, taken all of this time, and at the very end of it, nothing, which regardless of what side you're on, I think should make everybody a little bit frustrated with this entire process, just personally.
I always saw it as lawfare, and now it's wasted $50 million lawfare. Bill, I got to ask you this question.
Yeah, this worries me.
You saw the people being stabbed?
Oh, on 16th Street Mall.
16th Street Mall.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think you're allowed to conceal carry down on the 16th Street Mall.
Maybe not. But then again, though, the idea is I don't think that I need to conceal carry to prevent myself from someone that has a knife, which I think is the advantage. And that's one of the things here is at least this person didn't have a gun, because they could have killed a lot more people than just the one person. What about the people that
got killed?
Oh, I know.
What about their ability to shoot the guy?
I know, but I'm telling you that you don't have to defend yourself with a gun from a person with a knife.
Well, apparently it didn't work. Running away didn't work.
I know, but here's the thing. Of the 3 people that were stabbed, 1 died. That's horrible. But what happened if that person had a gun? How many more people could have died, and how many more people could they have shot? They wouldn't have just shot 3 people, probably. Given the number of people, and we had witnesses down there, they could have easily, because again, knife is wet work. Knife is kinetic. You got to get close to someone. I can be standing dozens of feet away, and I can still pull a trigger. So that person wouldn't have even have to get close to any individual on 16th Street Mall in order to shoot them. So I hate the fact that someone lost their life, and I think it's a horrible, violent crime, and I hope we can do something about it. But if there's anything that we can take from this, at least they didn't pick up a gun.
I totally disagree on this. So one, the guy was already a criminal. It's unlikely that he was going to be able to get a gun anyways.
Wait, hang on.
The poor people.
Stop.
No, I don't want him to have a gun.
But hang on. What do you mean it's unlikely for him to get a gun? Didn't we see TDA running around apartment buildings with a whole bunch of guns? I thought the entire reason is it's easy for criminals to get their hands on guns. That's why we have to have guns ourselves.
But I don't know how a concealed
carry
carry ban would have stopped him.
No, I'm not talking about concealed carry ban. What I'm
That's
saying
what
is,
I'm talking about.
I know, but I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, and I hear from Rocky Mountain gun owners all the time that because it's so easy for these criminals to get guns, we have to have the guns. I'm saying, thank goodness he didn't have a gun, because his ability to inflict damage and kill more people in that situation is vastly increased versus having a knife.
The concealed carry ban, I don't think that wouldn't have anything to do with his ability to get a gun. It has everything to do with whether or not law-abiding people down there were unarmed, and they were, which is terrible. I wonder, and this is maybe a debate we can get into tomorrow because we're just running out of time.
Yeah.
But are the concealed carry bans causing more death in places like Denver, where you can't have a concealed carry gun down there on the 16th Street Mall? Would love to hear from you. Give us a call. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Boy, what a day it's been. Everything from the fire updates to whether or not the mayor should be traveling. The mayor of Los Angeles, after she made a promise that she wasn't going to travel, and then the worst disaster possibly in American history happens on her watch. She has to come back from Ghana. That was a good debate.
Yeah, that's a good debate because she was traveling and she was going to an inauguration. Of all the things to be out of the city when any sort of an emergency erupts, and you don't expect an emergency. So
you know what it
anytime
reminds
that
me of
erupts,
is that picture of Jason Crow with a martini glass.
Yes. Yeah, his cosplaying as James Bond. Yeah. That's great. He's like, yes, I like a chicken nut stirred.
Right.
I like, remember, the reason the illegals are a problem is because we're using mean words. Yeah, Jason,
unbelievable.
sure.
We
Yeah.
debated whether or not troops should be obeying the president if he orders troops to quell riots. And then Jack Smith, all of this, if you missed, go to 710knus.com. Hugh Hewitt's on later this afternoon. So don't miss that. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.